It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, the 24th day of July 2012. There is massive, obvious military news around the world, economic news. They're moving towards QE3. The Federal Reserve is, all of this is huge, very important information we're going to be breaking down. Also, new phone hacking charges rock London. Suddenly, Rupert Murdoch is endorsing gun control. George Soros, basically everything that he's always loved, but now he's fully turning over to them as the fact that the criminal attorney general and the Fast and Furious crime syndicate can arrest the head of News Corp basically whenever they want. So understand there is major blackmail going on there, and it looks like News Corp is completely rolled over into Obamanoid worship session as the blackmail game accelerates. We're going to be breaking all of this down. Syria confirms chemical weapons reserved for attack from abroad, which is exactly what our so-called government has for attacks from abroad. Israel steps up its rhetoric. That's just some of the news up at drudgereport.com. At Infowars.com, we have a lot of the same news, but also a lot of in-depth analysis of globalist crime syndicate operations. Yesterday, the Associated Press had an article about Marines shifting to police work because it's about being an occupying army, not just going in and knocking a government out, but putting in the new globalist military. I mean, it's always been about that since the days of Smedley Butler. But there is an article that details this out by Steve Watson at Infowars.com, and it gets into concerns about Marines. And it's a good article. It's just that Marines have already had DWI checkpoints all over the country, totally illegal. They've responded to shootings all over the country. The Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Army have all said they're going to put troops in every U.S. city. They're just announcing this to sell you on the idea that it's for overseas because it is dual use. But why are they getting ready for martial law? Well, they say it's for collapse, but I thought we were out of the recession 3.5 years ago. I mean, they don't lie to us. These are good people running our country. So we're going to be going over all that. And the public is really noticing that Mr. Holmes, the supposed shooter, I mean, they all over the news, they just say, it's him, he did it. He can't talk, though. He's obviously drugged out of his mind on psychotropics and other antipsychotics, but no one's saying he's drugged. It's just, here's a guy that can't talk, and he did it. And by the way, his mother and father have come out. This is an ABC News. Alleged Colorado gunman's family stands by son, and she says, I didn't say you've got your man in the shooting, as the police put out. They haven't been talking to us. They haven't been asking for our help talking to him. All they did was call up and say, is your son James Holmes? And she said, yeah, that's him. They said, guy with red hair, James Holmes, lives here. Yeah, you got your man. That's him. Why? What's going on? She said she didn't know that he'd been accused of these shootings. But see, they sold it like, Mommy said so. Well, let me tell you, ma'am, we've got, as people have noticed, when we open the phones up, we can load the phones from just in Aurora. And so I want to give people a chance from Aurora when we come back in this next couple segments ahead of 3 big guests today and a ton of news we're going to be peppering throughout. I want to go to people in Aurora or Littleton in that area. See how this whole thing's mischaracterized? Just like when Breitbart died within an hour and 49 minutes. I timed it. From the times that articles were time-stamped. They said he died of natural causes, go to sleep, no big deal. Coroner says he died of natural causes. The coroner hadn't even been called into the next day. See, I mean, again, the evidence of it being a black op is the fact that everything's so scripted day one. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live and transmitting worldwide. We have a jam-packed transmission lined up for you today. Wayne Madsen, I don't know his take, his intel on the mass shooting yet. But he formerly worked with the NSA. He's been a Capitol Hill reporter for decades, or 15 years since he got out of the NSA. He's broken so much news here and talked to his sources, federal informants and others, breaking down the fact that Judge Roll and Congresswoman Giffords were shot to basically cover up an investigation they were involved in of Fast and Furious. Wayne Madsen will be joining us in about T-minus 25 minutes. Joel Gilbert, we're going to open the phones up for him. This will be his second radio visit with us. He's been on the Nightly News. The maker of Dreams of My Real Father. Today is the official release date of that film. You notice we've been promoting it the last month. We have it in stock at InfoWarsShop.com. But the point is he is going to be joining us coming up. And then Larry Pinkney, video Skype. I have heard him on the radio before. He is a veteran of the real Black Panther Party, not the federally created ones. The former Minister of Interior of the Republic of New Africa, a former political prisoner, and the only American to have successfully self-authored his civil political rights case to the United States, United Nations under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. He's going to talk about COINTELPRO and how they basically destroyed the real Black Panther Party, regardless of whether you support their political views or not. They were not violent at first. They were infiltrated and radicalized by the government and the. I mean, I've had former FBI agents, high-level ones, the head of the Southern District of California, one of the most important FBI positions in the country, Ted Gunderson, admitted himself to COINTELPROing people. But he'd do stuff like, have women call up their wives and act like they were, calling up and that dating was going on. Kind of stuff that's happened to my wife many times. And he said that's tame compared to what goes on nowadays. Rest his soul. Of course, he died. Was it earlier in the year or was it late last year? So that's coming up. Wayne Madsen, director Joel Gilbert from the film Dreams of My Real Father, and Larry Pinkney. I'm very excited about those three interviews today. And we'll have open phones, I promise, during Joel Gilbert and for the second half of Larry Pinkney today. Obviously got a lot of video clips, a lot of audio clips, big events with Rupert Murdoch and resigning from his papers in England, his control of those. He is being blackmailed by the organized crime syndicate. I mean, you're seeing him endorse gun control now. You're seeing all these neocons. In fact, I had my stack in here from a newscast I shot last night, and I have the stack that was left in here, not the big stack from the radio yesterday that was already out of here, but the other big stack. It was a bunch of neocons on Fox News are saying, no, we should restrict guns. We should ban semi-auto. We should, it was a bunch of shows. Aaron printed me a whole stack of suddenly they're on Fox News going, ban semi-auto, ban them. You shouldn't be able to own them. It's only for hunting. You should only be able to have bolt action. Now, there is the stack. I'm going to find this, folks. There's just so much. I mean, that's a whole article right there of just the fact that they clearly are blackmailing News Corp. And I've been saying this for about a year. I mean, they're arresting the heads of News Corp in England. I mean, a lot of them are still in jail. There's more arrests today. Look, I'm not saying News Corp is good, but they're not MSNBC, who openly meets with George Soros and Media Matters, and their memos have gone public, and Politico's defended them, saying we're going to infiltrate news organizations and destroy them and sabotage them from within. I mean, that's racketeering. And they're tax exempt. Can you imagine if I tried to be tax exempt and just stand up for liberty when we really are nonpartisan and just stand up for what's right? But I've got to tell you, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of what Rush Limbaugh does. They've been trying to destroy him this year. They're trying to destroy News Corp right now. News Corp has just rolled over, belly up to this. Because the system sees it as a threat, because it at least posed as patriot to get that giant audience, because that is the most popular idea out there, is basic liberty. And so Fox News tries to pose as anti-New World Order enough to get that audience. I I mean, look at Infowars.com. We've come from nowhere in the last 17 years, just it looks like nowhere, but incrementally building up to the point now where we're as the biggest thing in alternative media, period, bar none. And that's not bragging, by the way. That freaks me out quite a lot because it's an incredible responsibility. And White House groups like Think Progress, run by the White House publicly, are calling for us to be shut down. They're calling for Drudge to be destroyed, basically. And it's very creepy. So pray for us, folks. This is not a joke. This is not a game. My spidey sense has been really tingling. They're getting ready to launch new wars, obviously, not just proxy wars against Syria and Libya, but Iran, all Hades is getting ready to break loose. They're telling police nationwide, get ready for total disaster and martial law in October. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is going on. Israel's saying they're going to attack Iran because Iran's planning to attack the Olympics. Does anyone really buy that? And again, I'm not for Iran either. It's just that Israel's lying, ladies and gentlemen. Israel's been caught staging terror attacks before. Jerusalem Post, Haaretz, Ynet News. It's not. They're doing it. And all these governments do it. They want wars so they can stay in office and get no-bid contracts and take people's rights during a giant war. Because let me tell you, they start a war with Iran and the Russians get involved, everybody's going to line up and do what they're told. And they got the checkpoints ready, the Marines, the Army, all of it. All right, I'm going to shut up right there. I want to take calls for the rest of this segment and the next. If you're in Littleton or Aurora, Colorado, and you want to call, or if you know the mother of the Ronald McDonald shooter, who's obviously drugged out of his mind, who they've already convicted, we need to get a hold of the mother because she's coming out saying, the cops called me up and said, does your son have red hair? And is he this person? Is this his name? She goes, yeah, you've got your man. That's my son. And then they went with that and said that she said that he did it. She said, no, they hung the phone up. Folks, this is all a setup. Hey, is this your son? You got red hair? Yeah, that's him. That's him. Yeah, you got the right guy. Thank you. Click. She's calling him for days. Hey, I didn't say that. Hey, I want to meet with him. Hey, he looks like he's drugged up. Hey, what's going on here? We're going to stand by him. Something's going on here. That tells you right there if it's a black op, the parents aren't involved. In these other cases where they're involved in high-level government operations, beyond national security, above top secret, shadow government, COG, Harrison Kleinbold's parents. And again, he comes out of an advanced brain interface. This program, and you can pull this up, Department of Defense wants to wipe bad memories. In fact, we've done the research. Aaron covered it some last night. We've got to do whole articles on this. This is just too much. This is exactly, I said I'd go to your calls, and I'm not right now. 800-259-9231, 1-800-259-9231, 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us. This whole thing, and then all the witnesses saying multiple shooters, smoke bombs from different angles, people letting him in, and now they've got the classic videos that look like actors. They're like, I have my ticket. I was there. It was terrible. By the way, there's only one shooter. Be sure to know that. One shooter, I mean, oh, yes, Building 7 fell on its own from the fires, of course. And so the other towers, pancaking, and then it cuts to the same guys in ball caps, all perfectly saying it within minutes of it happening. I mean, this is all staged, ladies and gentlemen. The passport being found and another one being found, all magical. I mean, it just goes on and on. These are staged events to set up the police state to then be pointed at the American people. So I want to hear from you if you're in the Denver area or if you have family that were witnesses to something. A nice lady sent us some photos and stuff that Kurt's going to get up in the next 30 minutes or so at Infowars.com that she went and took at the movie theater. If she can get back through and tell us what happened when she went to take photos. But when they come out instantly with a story, Breitbart, not even 2 hours had passed since he was taken to the hospital, and they come out and say, died of natural causes, nothing to worry about. The coroner says, go back to sleep. The coroner comes out a few days later and says, I didn't say that. We're going to do a full check. Then they've got poisons that metabolize out of the body. Again, that on top of about 100 other things, we have to look at Breitbart as a possible murder. I mean, that's crazy. He says, I'm coming out in the morning with something that'll destroy Obama, and then alludes to Obama at communist meetings. And then, as I predicted, I said in a few weeks, because there's threats going on. They're going to release, if they release some milquetoast nothing, oh, look, here's one of his professors at a meeting calling for socialism or whatever. Wow, that's really bombshell. And here is a deer in the woods. Here is a bear doing what they do in the woods. I mean, here is a bird flying in the air. I mean, this was nothing. So he's going to bring out this bombshell. He goes to a restaurant, hangs out with a bunch of people, drops dead, and then we're told, nothing to worry about, go back to sleep. And we're told immediately, don't ask questions or you're crazy. Oh, no, we just have known liars running things who've been caught assassinating people, who say they've got hit teams, saying the president will order secretly murdered whoever they want. They're admitting they spy on everybody without warrants now. I personally get death threats over the years where they want you to know, by the way, I just saw you let your dog out in the back. I'm going to cut your head off. Yeah, that little dog with the blue collar. I am going to cut your head off. Do you understand me? Oh, you got family in the hospital. Hope that, this is the type of stuff, folks. So they're listening to the phones. They've got armies of hardcore criminals that have been put in positions that are mercenaries who like hurting people, who like taking over. It's called tyranny. Tyranny. And we've been sold it's sexy, it's cool, it's fun. Yeah, if you want your wages cut, your bank accounts drained, taxes and fines and fees put on everything, and society collapsing with forced inoculations and chemtrails, then you're going to love the New World Order. Call's coming up. By the way, I went with the crew last night and saw a late-night showing of Batman. I haven't had a chance to talk to the crew yet because I walked out of the movie towards the end. It was so bad. And we were there getting popcorn and stuff, and they're like, what are you going to see, Batman? Like, oh, man, awesome, incredible. Oh, you just wait. And, I mean, I can go watch fantasy. I can go watch, I'm already reviewing it, aren't I? I said to go to your calls. I can enjoy Green Lantern, the Spider-Man movies, Star Wars. I mean, I can go watch fantasy stuff. It's not that I'm like, oh, this is kid stuff. It's when there's no plot developed. It's all just weird scenes of posing. The Batman fights look like it was the scene with Captain Kirk fighting the Lizard, where, I mean, it's like slow motion. It was horrible. It was a horrible movie, nothing but a mindless vehicle to deliver the idea of martial law and checkpoints, and the police are a gang that are going to riot and defeat the Occupy Wall Street people, who were AKA the Second French Revolution, and the idea that any protest is terrorism. I mean, it was just so ridiculous. And the cops are rushing up on Bane, and they're firing hundreds of machine guns at him, and like one cop gets shot, and the bullets all hit the ground and spark. It's just total. There you go. Ha-ha. They are, if you're not watching this, I guess radio listeners. That's enough. Actually, that's a better fight scene than the movie. I mean, it was horrible. All right, I'm going to shut up. I said we're taking calls from Denver. Julian, Joe, Mike, we'll get to all of you here. We'll even take some of you while Wayne Madsen's on. He's coming on to give us his take on it. By the way, I keep getting questions about a couple shirts my wife got me that are recreations of mountain climbing dress shirts from the 60s. And so that's what these shirts are I'm wearing. They're not Boy Scout shirts, but I like them, and that's what I'm wearing in the summer. And I have 2 shirts with them, and that's what I'm side issue, but it's become quite a big debate whenever I wear one of these shirts. What are they? Is it a military shirt? No, it's not. It's a rock climbing shirt. Not that I'm really a rock climber, but I do like to hike. So what do they call it, an alpiner? Okay, let's go ahead and take a call. Shut up, Jones, and go to the calls. Joe in Colorado, what's your take on all this? Them saying, Mommy says he did it, basically, but she never said that. What do you think of all this?
Yeah, first, my heart goes out to the family.
Yes.
But I just think that, it's blatant. The dude's not talking, looking crazy in court, bulletproof vest, all this stuff, doesn't shoot back at the cops. It's just, I'm a veteran. So, I've been awake for a minute listening to you for a while. My first time calling and getting through, but, it's crazy. I just can't believe it.
Well, what about the fact now that they admit he was on a bunch of psychotropic drugs, which can naturally make you go crazy and do stuff like this, like Sergeant Bales. Why are they even charging him? He was clearly completely insane. But the issue is this guy's totally covered up. Everybody says they're multiple shooters, but within minutes, oh no, we caught him. Here he is. We're not going to give you any details. And then they call the mother up and say, yeah, your son got red hair. Is this his name? Yeah, that's him. You got your guy. Well, why? And then they hang up the phone on her and announce she said he did it, basically. And she's coming out going, I've been telling him for days I didn't say that. She's having to do press conferences now. Why would they want to say, yeah, his mama says he's the guy that did it, when she didn't say that? I mean, boy, isn't that strong evidence right there?
And exactly, because a friend of mine, he was the one that first told me about it before I heard about it. He said, yeah, the mom, actually a couple people told me that. The mom said that, yeah, you got the right one, because they wanted to get everybody's first jump on it, but now anything they hear after that is crazy.
Well, again, that's the telltale sign, is when it's scripted. Listen, they also jumped the gun on scripting. On 9/11, an hour before on CNN, they go, Building 7, the 47-story building, has fallen. And Aaron Brown was on it, and he lived in New York. He turned around and he went, I'm not sure if that's right, though, because it's right behind him. And then BBC on 2 channels, the exact same thing, said it's fallen in its own footprint from fires. What a beautiful collapse. And I said, BBC first said those weren't real videos, and they said, okay, they are real, but we lost the tape. And I said, I know who did it. I know who gets your feed. You got an internal Reuters feed, and years later they admitted, yes, Reuters had reported it fell perfectly as it did with the cover story an hour before it did, and then they tried to cover that up, just like they said Lee Harvey Oswald had been captured before he'd even been arrested and no one knew his name. They printed that all over a certain time zone, Australia, New Zealand, and some other areas. Again, it's scripted, and they get caught scripting. Anything else, sir?
Yeah, on the end on that, it's a culture. Like I said, I was in the military.
I'll tell you what, stay there. I got Wayne Madsen coming up, but he'll only talk about 5 minutes or so before we start going to calls to get his take on what witnesses say. Stay there, Joe. Then we'll go to Julian, Greg, Mike, and others, all from the Denver area, straight ahead. And we've got former NSA officer, just an incredible journalist, Wayne Madsen, joining us to give us his take. All right, we are going to be going to Wayne Madsen of WayneMadsenReport.com here in just a moment. And then throughout the next 30 minutes, we'll take calls from people in Colorado for any questions you have or comments or statements you want to make about what's happened. We were just talking to Joe in Colorado, who's a veteran, saying he and his friends aren't buying it, especially now that the mother is coming out and saying, I didn't say he did it. They called up and said, is this your son? Is this his name? Does he have red hair? And she said, yeah, that's him. You got your man. Click. And for days, she's been calling the police. And the father has going, and now they're saying they're going to stand by him and don't know what really happened. No kidding. He can't talk. He's obviously drugged out of his mind. I mean, folks, when you see a drugged up person in the courtroom and the whole system says they did it, that's Operation Northwoods, folks. They commit the shooting. The witnesses are all saying multiple shooters. I'm ranting. I'm sorry. The whole thing. But we'll get Wayne Madsen's take. I don't know what Wayne's take's going to be. I just know he was on a few months ago, and he said he was very worried about new false flags. Paul Watson's finally going to get that article out today with all the Obama officials saying a mass shooting would help people reconnect with him. We have video clips of this from even Hardball a few months ago. The memos, Glenn Beck coming out and saying they want to stage a new Oklahoma and blame it on me. People are finally starting to get this. But we'll get Wayne's take in just one moment. Here's Ice-T on Denver TV. And as usual, it's not an American doing the interview. Nothing against people with British accents. It's just, why are all the newscasters now from England or Europe or something telling us, like, Piers Morgan, turn our guns in, or Felipe Calderon saying, turn our guns in. And I love what Ice-T says. He says, yeah, I'll give up my guns when you give yours up. The government's going to have guns. When other people have the guns and you don't, you're in trouble. That's why gun sales have exploded. People get it, folks. They know. We did the math. Kurt Nimmo showed the statistics. I mean, it is one of the rarest things. On average, there's about 15 people killed a year in mass shootings in groups of 5 or more. There's quite a few, 2 or 3 getting shot, and it's mainly gang-related. You see that stuff almost every day in Chicago. And, that's their problem. That's nature's way of, people. I'm sad it's happening. It's a very, corrupt drug culture. People should get away from it. But the point is, I don't lose my guns because a bunch of thugs kill themselves, but I'm ranting. Let's go to this quick clip of Ice-T telling it like it is, and I just love it. Here it is.
Well, I give up my gun when everybody else does.
And is that
Doesn't that make sense?
Well,
doesn't that make sense? I mean, if you were if there were guns here, would you want to be the only person without one?
So do you carry guns routinely at home? I mean, you have a gun at home?
Yeah, it's legal in the United States. It's part of our Constitution. You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny. Not to hunt. It's to protect yourself from the police.
And do you see any link between that and these sorts of incidents?
No. Nah, not really. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wants to kill people, you know, they don't need a gun to do it.
Makes it easier, though, doesn't it?
Not really. You can use you can strap explosives on your body. They do that all the time.
So when there's the inevitable backlash of the anti-gun lobby as a result of this incident, as there always is.
Well, that's not going to change anything in the United States.
Anything.
No. The United States is based on guns. You know, like KRS says, you'll never have justice on stolen land. So it's not going to change.
KRS-One, he's a listener of the show. He's in the Obama deception. And we've got to be honest about that. This is a warlike culture, the most warlike in history, quite frankly. And you're not getting our guns, okay? That's the end of it. And I totally agree with Ice-T right there. But, I mean, he says cops. That's for the general public, you know, to get it. He means corrupt, tyrannical government. Let's go to Wayne Madsen, author, researcher, WayneMadsenReport.com. He's got a new book out on Obama that's excellent there on the site. He is a Washington, D.C.-based investigative journalist, author, syndicated columnist. He's written for The Village Voice, The Progressive, Counterpunch, Online Journal, and more. His columns have appeared in the Miami Herald, Houston Chronicle, Philadelphia Inquirer, amongst others. He's been on all the major TV, reports on national security issues. I wanted to get his take briefly today, too, on the fact that NSA suddenly is like, okay, we spy on you in real time, no warrants. You're all being spied on. It's totally illegal. We just do it. Sit down, shut up. By the way, there was a drill running, of course, of the exact stuff happening in Denver, you know, at the same university he attended, of a movie theater being attacked and a guy using bombs to divert people as he shoots them. Wow. Wayne Madsen, again, formerly in submarine warfare, then was in the National Security Agency, worked for a lot of big telecommunication corporations as well. He joins us right now. He's a member of the Society of Professional Journalists and the National Press Club. Wayne, I don't know your view on this whole thing, but I've got a sneaking suspicion because I know you're always out there investigating the same info I am. Wayne Madsen, what do you say about what's happened in Denver?
Okay, let's take a look at Mr. Holmes, where he was back in May. He was on one of 6 individuals who received a National Institutes of Health grant for neuroscience training at the University of Colorado at the Anschutz Medical Campus. That used to be the Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center before the Base Realignment and Closure Commission had it privatized. And in May, Mr. Holmes presented a paper at the university, at the medical school, and get the name. It was on micro-DNA biomarkers in a class titled Biological Basis of Psychiatric and Neurological Disorders. That's kind of strange, since we're now told that, you know, this guy's a crazed lunatic. But it gets even more interesting. He did a summer internship at the Salk Institute, which is part of the University of California at San Diego and La Jolla. And the Salk Institute, I mean, they've done great things. I mean, Jonas Salk, the pioneer on the anti-polio vaccine. Yeah,
with 11 cancer viruses.
They also, the Salk Institute, back about the same time frame, was involved in research to create basically peak soldiers for the battlefield, where they were investigating sleep deprivation, getting soldiers to stay up, not get tired, and they were using something that actually comes from cocoa, a flavanol that was this project was conducted with the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency and the Salk Institute and the Mars company that makes Snickers and Milky Way bars. Okay, so this is just another example of some weird science being conducted.
Well, they're looking to put
Pentagon.
regular additives in things, tweak them slightly, and manipulate the public.
Yeah.
They now admit that all these DARPA programs are looking at manipulating and creating super soldiers. They're testing it on them. We've seen that happen with Delta Force, and they kill their whole families. Remember that event 5-6 years ago at Fort Bragg where 4 groups came back and killed their whole families? Well, one guy didn't. He beat the program, but the police said he was flopping around and yelling when they pulled up in front of the burning house. Exactly what this guy's doing. He now looks all drugged up. Please continue.
Well, it's interesting. I found a quote from Terence Sejnowski, who's with the Salk Institute for Biological Studies and the director of the Computational Neurobiology Laboratory. And he commented that a lot has changed in their study of the brain. And he says, since the early 80s, we now know a lot more about the brain. And then he added this, perhaps more than we need to know. Now, that's a pretty strange comment. That's sort of like the guy where they were running the drill, the training drill in Douglas County near Aurora, who said, yeah, this is a very strange coincidence. We happen to be running a drill on a shooter shooting people in a movie theater at the same time the actual event was taking place.
And throwing smoke bombs.
Yeah, so, so I'm looking at this like I looked at the Jared Loughner case, who killed federal Judge Roll and disabled Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. I mean, I was told by people in Arizona who worked with the FBI that he was an MK Ultra product, and I am firmly convinced that Mr. Holmes, James Holmes, was also involved in some experiment. Now, was he involved willingly or unwillingly? Isn't it funny? The Anschutz Medical Campus will not release any records of his time at that medical school, nor will other universities he was associated with in the past release any information.
Well, we know what they do now. The cutting edge is what they call vaccines, but they're really live viruses that are really nanotech. They're programmed to go in and eat certain ganglia in the brain in certain nerve centers. And the reason they know where to attack is that it has to be ganglia absorbing a certain chemical or endorphin or hormone. So they go where those are available and destroy them. Then drugs can be added to manipulate the interfaces. It's very sophisticated, but I've read the papers on it. And that's what they're moving to in pharmacological crops, to basically, without people understanding it, phasing it in where the general public just incrementally are turned into biological androids.
Right. It's also interesting that Holmes's father, Dr. Robert Holmes, worked with a company that was a partner of DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Now, this DARPA outfit does a lot of this weird science, okay? They spend all this taxpayer money on
research.
Futuristic research. It's actually, I've been told by people in the Pentagon, it's a huge washing machine where they launder intelligence agency money through DARPA to come up with a lot of strange things that Congress would never, in its right mind, approve of on a line item budget thing.
What do you make of the timing? We're obviously going to have to hold you a little bit in the next hour, so move Joel Gilbert. He'll be all right, because I want to get to these calls from people in Colorado for you, folks. Stay there. We want to hear from you. 800-259-9231. What do you make of the timing? Obama says in the next 2 weeks he's going to sign the UN treaty. They need just a few votes in the Senate. Didn't have them. This push for restricting guns. What do you make of the timing of this?
Well, sure took a lot of other stories off the front pages, that's for sure, including all the investigation of Mr. Romney's money offshore with Bain Capital. He's got to be really happy about this. Because
that was really starting to hurt him, the whole Bain Capital thing, and he wouldn't stand up for himself and stuff. Yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely. Also, Dr. Robert Holmes, father of James Holmes, the company he worked for was called HNC Software. It was in San Diego, and they merged later with a company called FICO. Now, they say he now works at FICO, which does a lot of predictive programming for people and for the credit industry. make sure that people who are using credit cards, it's actually them. But they use neural networking to do this. So he was involved in a lot of this neural networking research himself, and so was that company. And they had contracts with DARPA.
You know what else is funny? I want you to get to that, but I want your take on this. I'm sure you'll know this. Most people don't. Theodore Kaczynski volunteered for the MK Ultra program. We didn't find out till a lot later when they declassified some of that, but he was a volunteer. So you volunteer, but you don't know what you're volunteering for. And, of course, he was the Unabomber.
Well, sure. And you look at the whole history of MK Ultra. What do you find? You find Timothy Leary, who promoted the use of LSD, was part of that, as was J.D. Salinger, the author of Catcher in the Rye. And remember how many presidential assassins where they would go into their apartment and they'd find they only had a couple of books, but one of them was always Catcher in the Rye? I mean, this was the case with David Chapman, killed John Lennon. It was the case with Arthur Bremer, who shot George Wallace. It was the case with a lot of these presidential assassins. So I think they also found a copy in Timothy McVeigh's place. So has Batman replaced, nobody's reading anymore. They're going to movies. So has Batman replaced Catcher in the Rye as the triggering mechanism? Yeah, and to explain that, I made a video a month ago saying this film has triggers in it for violence because I could just watch it and see that. It's just incredible that these films are just backdrops for brainwashing. I want to go back to some calls now, and I want to get deeper into your views on this and then the big NSA scandal that's coming out. But we're going to go to Julian and Greg in a moment. But Joe in Colorado, you were on earlier, but we had to go to break, so I held you over. You're a veteran. You're there in the area. You're saying you're not buying it. What do you make of what Wayne Madsen's been saying? And then go ahead and make your other point.
It leads all back. You just follow, who's involved, and, you go deeper into it than what the media is telling you, and you're always going to find, some things that you need to ask more questions about. So I agree with them on that. About the culture, like I said, in the military, we would see a lot of things, and guys would giggle and think it's funny, and I was the one that was kind of thinking, what's going on? That's kind of the reason why I got out, and, that's what's going on with society. They think those things is funny, and it's just kind of sad, man, but, the people that are waking up, they're going to do what's right. And, I just pray for everybody because things are about to get out of hand,
God bless you, sir. I appreciate your fine points. Yeah, that's what I took away from watching Batman last night is I don't think of myself as some really smart hotshot. And I talk to adults and people, and they're like children. And I guess it's television. Wayne, do you get the point I'm making about more and more, either people are awake or they're getting more and more dumbed down, where they're like children and they have this Pavlovian preconditioned response to just giggle about everything?
Yeah, and you have to wonder about predictive programming techniques in Hollywood. I would note that on August the 10th, we're going to see the premiere of the new Born Legacy movie, the newest in the series by Robert Ludlum, and although it's like a super version of Jason Bourne, Treadstone was actually it's fictitious, a CIA assassination program, but Treadstone is absolutely MK Ultra. If anyone has seen the Bourne movies, you'll know that. And Ludlum,
it's incredibly accurate from what's declassified. They really did that.
That's right. I'll also note that James Holmes is the grandson of Lieutenant Colonel Robert Holmes, who was one of the first graduates at the Army Language School, now the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, one of the first graduates in the Turkish language there in about 1948. So we now have a link between Holmes and at least his grandfather, because once you graduate from that school in one of those languages, you're obviously going to go work under official cover for the CIA or the Defense Intelligence Agency. In this case, it would have been Turkey. So there's a link there. The other thing I would note, it's very strange, is the car that Holmes drove to the theater and had Tennessee plates. Now, what is the link to Tennessee? We're told he was from San Diego. He went to University of California at Riverside. What's the link to Tennessee? I haven't seen anything more on that. That's
and the witnesses are saying multiple shooters. Stay there, Wayne. Great points. A lot of other points on this. Why would they do this now? And then we're going to go to Julian and Greg straight ahead. We're going to go to you right after this break with Wayne Madsen. We'll keep him about 15 minutes and then get our next guest on. Democratic operatives urged Obama to seize on attacks. Paul Watson has the big report out with all the different video clips and their own internal documents and public statements about using terror attacks to take our liberties, including mass shootings, and how great mass shootings are for Obama. The whole article is there, right there, and I hope that everybody goes there and watches the different video clips where they talk about it and say it. In fact, I'm going to get him to add the part about Oklahoma City. I mean, he's got it in there, but even Glenn Beck saying they're getting ready to stage it and blame it on us. Because they say that. Boy, we're going to have an Oklahoma, we're going to blame it on them. They don't say they're going to do it. They say, we're going to have one, we're going to blame it on them. Like saying, that bank's going to get robbed next week. We're going to blame it on this guy. Who's the first person you go to? Hey, you said that bank was going to get robbed. It got robbed. Why don't you get up against the car? We're putting handcuffs on you. Instead, it's like, oh, yeah, so... Wayne Madsen, you pointed at Romney, though, saying it's got a lot of stuff out of the news. I mean, Romney's not in control of the Justice Department and stuff that ran fast and furious. I mean, isn't this their M.O., Holder and people from Oklahoma City?
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, this whole Fast and Furious thing, you know, which I still also think was to destabilize Mexico, to get this guy, this New World Order guy, the new president installed down there. It looks like they stole that election. The two opposition parties anywhere claiming it happened. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cheap political shots being made right now. I don't often listen to Sirius Radio, but I was listening to Tom Hartman's program yesterday where he brought your name up. He started talking about the right wing fringe that wants guns and mentioned you in particular and debunked all these conspiracy notions about Colorado and I think he mentioned you in the same sentence with David Koresh. It's amazing. He's got a program on RT. I don't know what happened to that network, but he's clearly funded by the Center for American Progress, which is the George Soros finance think tank that basically acts as a policy toadies for the White House.
Well, there you go. There you go. Think Progress is run by Soros in the White House. It's on record. They have meetings weekly there. And they basically called for us to be shut down last week. And now you tune into the radio, and Hartman, who used to be an okay guy, you know, I used to get him on the show. I've been on the show before, and he just viciously attacks me now and starts making stuff up. And it's really creepy to see somebody totally join the dark side. Because you can be a liberal or a conservative, and you know, I can disagree with you about something, but when you get, so basically, just to get this right, because I'm going to go find it and do a story on it, because this is a big deal. They're trying to blame Rush Limbaugh, too, for this. And again, folks, even if you don't like Rush Limbaugh, if they can demonize the First Amendment and talk show host, they can have a chilling effect and go after us all. That was on MSNBC. You're telling me, it was also on NBC, national TV, you're telling me that he was saying that basically this culture of guns, Alex Jones, implying somehow, you know, that we're causing the culture, or am I wrong there? And then implying I'm a cult leader like David Koresh?
Yeah, and you know, and pulling us, you know, out of making us out of whole cloth about the conspiracy kooks out, you know, taking advantage of this incident to, you know, try to put out a lot of various conspiracy theories. I mean, he loves to use that term because, remember, this term became a vogue term after the Kennedy assassination in '63, when people said, we're not going to buy this this ludicrous notion that this guy was a lone gunman, and it's been used as a pejorative term ever since.
All right, stay there. We got to go to break, but I'm going to go to Julian and then Greg from Colorado. I promise, straight ahead. This is just, I was about to go to you, and he hit me with that news. And then after that, I'm going to ask Wayne, what does it mean? I mean, because I feel creeped out when White House operatives are attacking me every day. Former National Security Agency operative, employee, Wayne Madsen, investigative journalist, joins us right now. I'm going to get his take and on exactly what Tom Hartman over on XM and syndicated radio was saying about me, that I'm David Koresh and all this stuff. I guess I need to be burned up with my family? Is that what happens to heretics like me that don't trust known lying government? Okay, pray for us, folks, because the White House, through its operatives, are now attacking us. I'm seeing reports every day without looking, and it's really getting bad. And they're saying stuff like "shut me down," "shut me up," which then they usually carry out. So, and I've really been feeling creeped out lately, but that's just the way it is. It's victims of our success here, which is on the road I walk. It's what I asked for. Julian in Colorado, you're on the air with Wayne Madsen. Thanks for holding. What's your take on all this?
I just think it's just another distraction for Obama to kind of regroup and try and make enough of an effort towards bringing everyone back to his side before the election comes up.
No doubt that it's a distraction from them gearing up to have war with Iran and Syria. That's huge news. Where are you in Colorado?
I'm actually, I work in Commerce City, which is just pretty much due north of Aurora, actually.
What are your friends and family saying? What's your take on this? I know your take. What's their take?
Yeah, well, my friends and family just pretty much have been following the media and really just believe that he's just a crazy maniac that just went off the deep end, I guess. But I mean, I personally think it's a little funny because Friday I came into work around 8 o'clock and I didn't know any about the news until I was off on my lunch hour. And right when I was pulling up, I saw 3 Black Hawk helicopters heading due north from the Aurora area over where I work in Commerce City.
Well, probably Miller time after a good mission completed. Thank you for the call. Let's talk to Greg real quick. We're going back to Wayne Madsen. Greg in Colorado, you got any questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks. I got some comments. I've seen so many documents over the last few days from Homeland Security and different fusion centers. I saw one. This was literally hours after the shooting from New Jersey, the New Jersey Fusion Center assessment of the mass shooting, and now they're warning of security agents to watch out for people filming, photographing, or videotaping facilities and security posts.
Yeah, they're using this as the fear to roll out, just like the underwear bomber was to roll out the scanners. This is to roll out the on-the-street checkpoints. Great point, Wayne Madsen.
Yeah, the other thing that I thought was rather interesting was the fact that Holmes's father, the research he was involved with was called cortronic neural networking, which would allow machines to interpret oral and visual stimuli to think like humans. Now, the Anschutz Medical Campus, where the Joker was, supposedly the Joker, if that's who it was, and this thing gets more bizarre by the day. They when that was Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center, they pioneered in the research of chips for prosthetic devices for troops that lost limbs on the battlefield. So there is a legacy of this type of research.
Exactly. Stay there, Greg. I want to hear more about. Obviously, you work in some security function, but getting these internal alerts. We see a lot of the public ones. They had said that the theater in Colorado would be attacked the month before, and the FBI pulled that warning the day after the attack last Friday. So why would they pull one of their little fear-mongering things? They might say, hey, see, we told you. We're going to come back to that caller and then come back to Wayne Madsen straight ahead. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for joining us. It is Tuesday, the 24th day of July, 2012. Coming up here at the start of the next segment, documentary filmmaker Joel Gilbert is going to be joining us about where Obama really came from in the aftermath of his film, officially coming out today, but we've been selling it for the last month. Dreams of My Real Father, Infowarsshop.com. He's going to be joining us, and we're going to open the phones up on that subject for people. He's already been on once on the radio with us, once on the nightly news, so that's coming up. But I'm holding Wayne Madsen over because he was formerly with the National Security Agency. He's written for the Miami Herald, you name it. He's there on Capitol Hill, and he's concurring that this has MK-Ultra mind control written all over it. Multiple shooters, multiple smoke bombs from different angles. The mother saying she didn't say he did it. They just called him and said, is this your son? She said, yeah. Click, and then they wouldn't talk to her. I mean, the whole thing has the scripting, the police chief, day one saying, don't listen to conspiracy theories. All of this, the timing, the UN treaty, all of it. But we just had a caller in the last segment who got cut off by the break. So I want to go back to, which caller was it, John? See, now there's more callers from Colorado. Yeah, it's Greg. That's what I thought. Greg was saying he got these Homeland Security Threat Fusion Center warnings. And again, a lot of these are not public, but they're not classified. Send them to whistleblowers at Infowars.com. We got the MIAC, Homeland Security reports over the years. We publish these where they say veterans are the enemy, the founding fathers are trash, gun owners are evil, America's bad, basically. The TSA is running promos the last year. They will be in shopping malls, movie theaters. I mean, this is the rollout. And so we told you it's coming, and he was saying that indeed they're saying, brace, brace, and all over the country there's hysteria. They're arresting people at movie theaters that just argue. If somebody goes out the back exit, even near the end of the movie, they call the police, the theater is flushed out, kind of like if one person goes through security without being checked at the airport, everything's shut down and panicking and fear, but 60,000 dead on the U.S.-Mexico border the last 5 years, nobody cares. You know, hundreds of heads being dropped off every year in South Texas and Arizona. Nobody cares. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This is the new hype in the make-believe that men in black uniforms are coming to get you. So you got to give your rights up to men in black uniforms. But Corey, I guess, or Greg, I got another Corey there from Colorado. I guess you work in security to be getting these. Just to recap, you were saying within a matter of hours, you were getting all of these messages coming in from different threat fusion centers. So what area do you work in without being too specific?
Well, I have a friend that's in intelligence, and he passes information over to me. And I have two documents, actually. One's from New Jersey, from the New Jersey Regional Operations Intelligence Center. And you're right, this is literally hours after the shooting. It has a description of James Egan Holmes, his birth date, his age, warning people now that there could be more shootings in casinos, at malls, shopping centers, sports and entertainment venues, schools, including...
Which, by the way, I've said hundreds of times, and we've got to have listeners pull up the videos and audio. I've said the next thing will be at shopping malls and all this to roll out the TSA, and the TSA in the last 3 months has been getting their teams ready in all 50 states, and I said magically this is going to happen. Isn't this unbelievable?
Here's another, this is from the document. The greatest threat facing security officials today is that of lone offender or homegrown violent extremists. So this is why they want to keep this lone gunman story going. And here's another document I found, Alex. This is literally from Homeland Security within hours after this event took place. And the document's performance venues, indicator of violence and prospective measures. And again, this document talks about now watching for suspicious reporting, people at TSA checkpoints, talking about, again, malls and shopping centers.
No, that's what they're saying is if you argue or videotape, you're a terrorist anywhere. So the First Amendment's terror, and this is the new rollout. Do me a favor. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to give you one of our secret bat emails. Will you send that over right now?
Yes. Can I mention a few more things? I saw Batman last night, and I did research on Christopher Nolan. He's probably one of my favorite directors. And so many of his films, I have a suspicious feeling that he's awake to certain things. Last night in Batman, they talked about training exercises during the scene where they take down the football games, correct? Well, what happened here with the shooting in Colorado? There were training exercises. There's a lot of indicators. And one more thing, Wayne, I followed your work. You talked about Howard Hughes and the Mormon Mafia connections tying into Mitt Romney. Well, Christopher Nolan has a film coming out, I believe in the next year or the year after that, about Howard Hughes and his connections to the Mormon Mafia and his eventual death. And one more thing, it's no coincidence, but this weekend here in Aspen, I'm about 10 miles from Aspen, We have the Aspen Security Forum taking place, and the who's who of government intelligence.
Oh, yeah, the NRA was meeting in Denver during Columbine. I mean, they they did that there to demonize them. It's so obvious. Thank you so much. We've got to move because we've only got 5-6 minutes left with Wayne Madsen and WayneMadsenReport.com. But, I mean, Wayne, how many times did we talk about the new rollout is going to be attacks in shopping malls and movie theaters because they were scripting it, and now we've confirmed the TSA is deploying into all 50 states, rolling out, my goodness, could they trigger a whole line of sleeper agents?
Well, there's some countries overseas where if you go into a shopping mall or a restaurant, you've got to go through a metal detector, and there's a report that Michael Chertoff was in Denver just shortly before this attack.
He was there.
So here we have Mr. Rapiscan, Mr. Pervert, body scan out there right before this happened. Sort of like when Rudy Giuliani happened to be in London with Benjamin Netanyahu during the London transit bombings, and there was a drill going on there as well.
The exact targets hit at the exact time at the exact locations. We did the math. It was from an actuary with a insurance company. Just the basic computer breakdown was something like 1 out of 23 trectogillion. And
right. Yeah, figure the odds. And the other thing I find interesting is this Cortronic neural networking, this man-machine interface. A lot of that work was pioneered by the RAND Corporation. Now, they're a well-known intelligence operation doing all kinds of wacky research. Well,
they're the master planner group.
Well, that's right. And, even Stanley Kubrick made fun of them in the movie Dr. Strangelove when he referred to them as the Bland Corporation. So they've had a long history of coming up with really crazy R&D projects. So their fingerprints are all over this man-machine interface, Cortronic cognitive neurology research as well.
Unbelievable. Listen, I want to, because you brought this up before the last hour, and can you just recap what you heard Tom Hartman on a syndicated radio show saying about me? Because, you were moving quick. Are you saying he was implying somehow that my rhetoric is causing this stuff to happen?
Yeah, this is what you're hearing. It's like, there'll be the conspiracy theorists, the kooks will now come out and say there's a plan to seize weapons. He mentioned your name, and then he said, this is the fringe represented by people like David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. And, it's not just Hartman, but you hear the same stuff from these other Obama bots like Bill Press and, Ed Schultz and the rest of them. And it's quite clear that their only reason for existence is to, basically grandstand for the administration. Otherwise, they wouldn't have these corporate jobs that they have if they were telling the truth. They don't have any room. And we see what happens with them when somebody's on MSNBC, they start telling the truth, they get fired immediately. Phil Donahue, one case in point.
Yeah, sure. But it's just so sickening to be funded by George Soros. Think Progress that they work for is on record a White House front, run by top advisors of Obama. And, if they're worried about Alex Jones, they've got bigger problems, I would imagine, out there. People know Obama's a crook. They know Holder's a crook. It's done. Yeah. And all you do is give us credibility when you attack us. We only got a minute or two left. I want to get you back up soon about this. What do you make of the NSA now in court admitting they're spying on all communications real-time illegally?
Well, there were a lot of whistleblowers came to me before Obama started, bringing charges against people that talk to the press. But I was told this years ago that NSA was doing vacuum cleaner sweeps of communications, not for any sort of plausible or a criminal predicate, but just to surf the ether, trying to find what people are thinking, what their politics are, and put them obviously in databases. They're labeled, as threats. And this is what's going on. And they're building this huge facility in Utah where they're going to maintain all this data.
And you worked there. This is super, super creepy. and totally illegal. And now Chertoff in Denver said we need the NSA to spy on everybody. That's the answer because of the shootings. Very disgusting.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's a long history of NSA using dupes like Robert Morris Jr. in '88 at Cornell, who released the Internet Worm program. His father was the chief scientist for NSA when that happened. And, of course, now that kind of thing is used in cyber warfare strategy on a daily basis.
Well, it's just like our government with Israel released Stuxnet, and now they're using it as the excuse to try to take over the web and take our freedom on the web. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, there is no check and balance. The Congress is not doing its job at maintaining supervision over these wacky agencies.
Should I be concerned now that on a daily basis Soros fronts are attacking me? I mean, I used to it was every few weeks. Now it's every day. Should I be worried?
I don't think so. I mean, Soros, with all his money, I think he's very vulnerable.
All right. Thank you so much, Wayne. MadsenReport.com. Find his new book there. Okay, coming up after Joel Gilbert leaves us, I'm going to get into the national hysteria where they find a drunk with a backpack and moonshine, and it's like, Batman, run for the hills. I mean, if they see a bump on a log, it's just fall to your knees, shake in fear. Bane's going to get you. Ronald McDonald Joker's going to pop out and kill you. Only Obama and TSA and all the grocery stores can save you. I mean, it is so frightening what's happening. Oh, my gosh, we need martial law immediately, which is all the new Batman movie promotes. I mean, this country is in a fantasy land coma. That's what's going on here. They've admitted all over the news that his real name was Barry Soetoro, and no one knows where he was really born, but he said for 16 and a half years he was born in Kenya on his own PR press releases. But it looks like he really was born in Hawaii, but Frank Marshall Davis. The film, Dreams of My Real Father, is available at InfoWarsShop.com. We've had it the last month because they graciously let us put it out first. Today is its official release date, and I wanted to get Joel Gilbert on to give us his take on the aftermath of people starting to see the film, what he makes of Obama and the UN gun treaty. And I want to take calls for Joel Gilbert, any questions you have for him, at 800-259-9231. We'll get to Corey from Colorado as well, but 800-259-9231. Questions for Joel Gilbert about the film. Joel, thank you for joining us today. Good to have you here with us. Out of the gates, I've got to ask you, we've got an article up at Infowars.com with all these top Democrats saying in the last 2 years that a mass shooting would help Obama connect with the public, but in Oklahoma City would be even better. And now the mother is saying she never said her son did it, that they made that up. They're reporting multiple shooters. I mean, if they ran Fast and Furious, which is a false flag attack, to blame the Second Amendment, would they do something like this? I mean, I know there are folks that say they want to kill 25 million of us in re-education camps, but I guess they wouldn't do something like stage a theater shooting, would they, Joel?
Well, you almost, I hate to say it, but you can't put anything past them because the capitulation, the lies, the dishonesty of the national so-called mainstream media, and then some, becomes more and more disturbing every day. I was at the National Press Club in Washington last week on Thursday, and I gave a 30-minute speech, and the first thing I said was, any journalist in this building, in the National Press Club, all they have to do is come down and watch the excerpts from my film, Dreams from My Real Father, and they can win a Pulitzer Prize. All you've got to do is talk about the evidence that Obama sold himself to America as the multicultural ideal, a man who stood above politics. That was the story because his father was a goat herder from Kenya, and he would bring people together. And as a result, people perceived him as a nice man and with an inspiring family story, and the national media went with that. But in my film, which you have on your Infowars store, Dreams from My Real Father, I demonstrate that Obama actually has a deeply disturbing family background, which he intentionally hid, that his real biological and then ideological father was a Communist Party USA propagandist and Soviet agent, Frank Marshall Davis. Now, while voters will overlook some fudging by politicians to create a false background and promote it to hide an agenda irreconcilable with American values, is totally unacceptable. And the only reason he's able to get away with it is because the media will not tell the truth. So don't trust him with anything. That's what I say.
And now they're having to admit that, okay, his dad wasn't tortured by the British in Kenya. It wasn't even his dad. They're having to admit that a lot of these photos are photoshopped and things. I mean, who is this guy? I mean, I agree, Frank Marshall Davis, he talks about him like he's his dad. He hung out with him as a kid a lot. Grandpa brought him over. There was some weird thing between them. Obama says, you know, his grandfather, it's some unspoken thing with him and Frank Marshall Davis. His mother there posing on the couch naked, and then you see Davis in other photos on that couch. He was a secret pornographer, publisher of, you know, all these porno things. I mean, it's just so seedy and so weird. But and then it's the only plausible story. The film is Bombshell, and it's available right now at InfoWarsShop.com. We're going to get the aftermath of this and your phone call straight ahead. Alex Jones back live here. Director Joel Gilbert joins us. Joel just began to investigate Obama himself and ran into this information, and it turned out separately other investigators had actually talked about this 3 years ago, and it had been on national news. Joel separately discovered people talked about Frank Marshall Davis being his father. Let me tell you, the voice, everything, spitting image. He writes about him almost more than his mother in his book. You've got to see the film Dreams of My Real Father, available at InfoWarsShop.com or Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com will get you there. Because when I was first told about this, I don't know, like 3 months ago by Dr. Corsi, because, you know, Corsi's just like, we don't know who he is. We know the official story is not true. I was like, okay, well, yeah, let me see the film. So I got one early. And I was like, wow, this is really convincing. This really makes sense. I'd say I'm about 95% convinced by the film. Everybody I know that sees it just says, oh, my gosh. I mean, you got to see it, all the comparisons, the photos. They visit the house where Frank Marshall Davis lived, where Obama went every week. I mean, this is his daddy. And then you understand why his wife said he was born in Kenya in multiple speeches even 4 years ago. There's video of that. Just pull up. Michelle Obama says he was born in Kenya. And it's put out in all his literature and all of his PR things. You know, hundreds of publications. And we're like, hey, you say you're born in Kenya. We know these birth certificates are fake. And then but your dad doesn't look anything like you. And the State Department said it wasn't your dad and kicked him out. And you got a dead person's Social Security number. And, you know, they said he wasn't named Barry Soetoro, but it turned out he was. And now they make a joke out of it. It turns out most of the stuff in the book isn't true. And then you got all these weird CIA people. I want to go to calls, but first find out the latest, you know, backlash, whatever's, you know, happened to you, Joel, since you were on with us a few weeks ago on the nightly news and a few months ago on the radio. But today's the official release date of Dreams of My Father's. Well, Dreams of My, I'm thinking of the book that you then researched for, Dreams of My Real Father. But Aaron Dykes, who's host of the nightly news here and researcher, he agrees with your analysis that their enforcer level is a communist brigade model, and they are communist. But above that is all the mega-rich foundations and ultra-wealthy funding it. I've asked you this question, but Aaron, you can just rattle off all the foundation names. So Aaron Dykes, pose your question to Joel Gilbert here, and then we'll get his take on that. Go ahead, Aaron.
Right. Hi, Joel. Yeah, first, I found your film gripping, of course, and everything, but I was wondering, obviously, Hillary's an Zelenskyite, but at this point, the Clinton family's very much on the globalist agenda stage, not trapped within a communist thing. And it's the same deal with the Ayers connections. You've got Bill Ayers, a very, you know, Weather Underground, very violent group, part of like almost a proto-Occupy Wall Street. But then conversely, his father is a mega-rich, foundation-funded. He sits on, what, 10, 15 boards in Chicago. He's on the Searle board, which is what Monsanto became, later merged.
Yeah, they're anti-free market. They want monopolies.
Right. I was just wondering on his take on the larger agenda beyond kind of the glass ceiling of communism.
Yeah, we've found, as the book None Dare Call a Conspiracy shows, there is a mega-crony capitalist anti-free market group. Well, Carol Quigley wrote about this.
Okay, yeah. Let me answer. I can tell you that the style of the socialists and communists is to use anyone and everyone that they can to achieve power. Frank Marshall Davis, Obama's real father, was in charge of bringing blacks into the communist movement in Chicago in the 1930s. Now, he ultimately failed because the blacks were religious people and communism was atheist. Obama goes back to Chicago, follows in his father's footsteps in reverse some years later from Hawaii to Chicago, and he has much more success in recruiting black people to the socialist movement, to ACORN and all the affiliated movements. I can tell you that the communists consider minorities, blacks, Hispanics, rich people, oligarchs, the middle class, simply as pawns that will be discarded once they achieve power.
No, I know. I understand that. Why do the mega rich, in so many cases, fund communists?
I think that they can control them, and they won't be able to cut off their funding at any point. But I think their interests will ultimately collide, and those two groups will eventually part. And I even have new information on Obama that we came out with just last week. I think we sent it in, that we actually discovered on Obama's own Facebook page. He has a picture of him at 12 years old with his mother, grandfather, and half-sister, and we see the hand of Frank Marshall Davis, a black man's hand attached to Ann Dunham. Obviously a Photoshop forgery.
Now, this is incredibly bad. Why are always the forgeries so bad?
I think it's because if you're the President of the United States, you can't put an ad in the Washington Post or on Craigslist that says, if you need, I need a forger, please contact 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You have to rely on someone very, very close to you that would never testify against you. It has to be literally a close person or family member who happens to know a little Photoshop. So that's why I believe he's stuck making bad forgeries. And if you look on Obama's Facebook page or on my website, obamasrealfather.com, you can see an obvious forgery from Obama where he's doing a pattern, what I say is a pattern of document forgery to hide the role.
Yeah, we've got the new video. We're rolling it right now. In fact, I'm going to have, guys, ask Kurt Nemo, please, to post this in the tiles at Infowars.com right now. Thank you so much. You're absolutely right. I mean, this is just crazy. But undoubtedly, from your own research, there are the mega rich funding communism, and what they want is a world monopoly where the globalists are exempt from the laws, but within the country, they squeeze and destroy the middle class.
I think the middle class has always been a target of the communists all the way back to Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground. They hated the middle class, and Obama's lie of his campaign is to say that he wants to help middle class families. In fact, socialist economies don't have a middle class. They just have one lower class. All these policies, health care, wealth redistribution, it's all about eliminating the upper and middle class to create a massive lower class with political elites that control the wealth and control the government. We've seen it a million times in Europe, in Russia.
No, it creates hell on earth. Larry Grafwald, as you know, you're speaking at a conference with him very soon. He was on about a week and a half ago with us, and we were playing the clips of where they were talking about how they were going to put 100 million in camps, kill 25 million, and licking their lips. I mean, mainly these are a bunch of just gibbering, demonic, psychopath control freaks.
And the disturbing part is, no matter how much good information we put out, I put out this film as a cohesive understanding of Obama's life history from his tutelage from his real father, Frank Marshall Davis, through his relationship with Bill Ayers and the Ayers family. And we can't get the media to cover it. So I told you a couple weeks ago that I was going to announce a way to reach everybody in America since they would not cover this important story. So now I'm going to tell you what it is. We are mailing, we've secured funding to mail, starting, it's already in the process, starting 2 weeks from today, we're going to mail a free copy of a couple 100,000 DVDs to addresses in Ohio and Virginia. That's starting in a few weeks. And from there, we're going to expand across all the United States as much as we can, depending on the funding we get. And that way, there'll be a grassroots knowledge of this story. People can really see what Obama's real deadly Marxist agenda is for America and how it will really affect the middle class. And it's nothing about helping them. It's about eliminating them.
Hey, what about mailing 10,000 to Congress? That would be effective as well.
Well, I was on Capitol Hill last week, and I dropped several copies amongst sympathetic, hopefully, members of Congress. But generally, they're afraid to talk about it. A lot of the mainstream media say, we've seen the film, we agree with you, this is shocking, this is blockbuster, but we're afraid. We're afraid. And I said, look, we're going to send out hundreds of thousands of copies. And they said, well, once people talk about it more, then maybe we can talk about it. So I appreciate you, Alex, that you're unafraid.
Well, it is important for people to hit the barbed wire first so others can follow the trailblazers like yourself. And, you know, more and more the media is starting to report on a lot of the things that are happening, like Fast and Furious and other areas. But, you know, the fact is Obama has been caught lying about his past a bunch, so no one can then criticize us if we start investigating it deeper. I want to go to some phone calls, but I wanted to ask you, what else has come out new other than the doctored photos you found on their Facebook on Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama, whatever his real name is, I guess Barack Hussein Davis. I mean, President Davis, what else have you learned? What type of backlash have you experienced?
I haven't gotten much backlash because mainstream media wants to ignore me, though Media Matters has written a couple of nasty articles the last few days.
Nobody reads George Soros' publication, yeah.
Yeah, I did receive hundreds of emails from concerned Americans. One was very touching. It was from a Vietnam veteran. He said to me, we're on the verge of losing the Constitution. Freedom and liberty are in jeopardy. As a Vietnam veteran, I ask, what did I fight for? That's what he emailed me. So I'm very encouraged by a number of people that have written in and said, can you please share this with millions so we can get the message out about what's really happening to the government and what Obama's real political foundation is. I think I've proven in my film that his political foundation is in a Stalinist version of Marxism, and that's why he showed up admittedly at Occidental College at 18 years old as a committed revolutionary Marxist, in his own words, and he's been pursuing the dreams from his real father, Frank Marshall Davis, his entire life.
Now, it's great to mail this out to 200,000 people in key states to get coverage. But if people want to air this on Access TV, I guess they just email you to get permission?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go to some calls. Most of them are for you, Joe, Colin, Jesse, Mark, and others. But Corey's been holding since the last hour, or the start of this hour, from Colorado on the shooting. Let's get his take real quick on that event. Very fortuitous for Obama. We have top Obama advisors. Not one, not two, not three, but four in an article titled Democratic Operatives Urge Obama to Seize on Attacks. That's a good headline by Paul Watson, Alex Jones, but I think I may change the headline to Democratic Operatives, tell Obama attacks will help him or something like that, because that's really what it says. It's amazing information. I'm now talking to journalists. I've been blamed by Tom Hartman, basically, that it's my fault things are happening. And I guess wherever they're on the radio. And then I guess I've also, Rush Limbaugh's been blamed, by NBC. They said, talk show hosts like that. And they harken back to Clinton after Oklahoma City blaming people. So this is a very, very dangerous situation. Corey in Colorado, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. I've been a fan of yours for about 8 or 9 years. I've bought all your videos.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to tell you something that I think is kind of important. Years ago in that tech shooting, you were gone that day, and I drove home, saw the flags were half-staffed, and I came to my office, I turned your show on, and the other gentleman was there, and you were gone, and they put us on the air live, and those kids, as you know, were being shot at. They were listening to your show. We were telling them to run from the black ops, that they were not there to protect them. And at that particular time, I was a personal friend with a black op. He was running for his life because he left the black ops, and they wanted him to go do a mission, and he refused to do it. So he was in hiding. He was calling me from all over the country and all over the world in hiding. But right after that tech shooting, and I was on live on the air on your show exposing that, within 45 days, a black op helicopter came over to my house and flew right above my house, and I could see the pilot's face.
Well, ma'am, a lot of that is they fly around with infrared cameras and grids looking for marijuana growing, and it's wrong to have the Department of Defense doing that. But just because a helicopter flies over your house does not mean they're coming to get you. But I appreciate your call. Let's go ahead and talk to now the first caller holding, listening on 90.1 FM in Austin, Texas. Mark, you're on the air with the director of Dreams of My Real Father, Joel Gilbert. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, Joel, let me tell you that I ordered your movie through InfoWarsStore.com or what have you with the address, and I loved it. It was perfect. Did a very great job, and I felt like a fat kid trapped in a cake factory, you know what I mean? It was just one of those things where I couldn't stop watching, and I've been working for years on getting my fiance to wake up, and she finally woke up after this movie.
Yeah, it's chillingly convincing, to quote my dad, because my dad came over and got one like a month ago when we first started selling it, early before it even came out officially, and he said, I want to see this, and I saw him a few days later. He was out visiting with his grandchildren, and I said, well, what'd you think of it? He says, chillingly convincing, and I said, ooh, that's a good quote, chillingly convincing. Do you have any questions for Joel Gilbert?
Yeah, one thing about the whole fake documents issue, I think you're just being a tad bit naive on that, because even the most corrupt president always has very expert, Photoshop people at his disposal. I think the reason they're doing that is because, and Alex, I'd like your comments on this after I ask, I'll hang up and listen, but I think that he's doing it because of the whole, we have to show you what we're doing before we do it to you issue. Everything has to be laid out. You have to have signed off on all of it, and they're just making it obvious, and they're rubbing it in our faces.
Well, I don't agree. I think it's very hard to forge documents and keep the loyalty of a person who would go to jail for forgery. That has to be someone very close to you. So I wouldn't think it's any more complicated than simply Obama puts out these documents like the mysterious hand of Frank Marshall Davis that they accidentally left in the photo with Ann Dunham, who they photoshopped in. So I think it's a pattern of document forgery to hide Frank Marshall Davis by amateurs.
Well, Joel, let me raise this point. I've talked to a lot of retired, pretty famous intelligence operatives. One of them's Dr. Steve Pachinik, and he said, you don't have to worry too much about them killing you, though you've exposed this bin Laden hoax. So he said they might come after you for that, because he said he got a lot of current and former British MI6, Mossad, and U.S. intelligence called up, basically, getting in his face about it when he came on and said that whole thing was fake. He said it years ago on the show and said they would do it later, but the point is he explained they like to get big committees in NATO and the UN to agree, so everyone votes and then everybody has plausible deniability for murders and crimes. That's why Obama wants this authorization to kill U.S. citizens from Congress secretly. He can then say, well, I have a law, NDAA. And so there's a lot of paperwork involved. You don't just go to one of these, sure, they'll create fake documents for agents to infiltrate countries, but when it's the president, the blackmail power of that, and especially when you're not trusted in agencies of government, because there's a lot of good people in there, you've got to go to your wife. You've got to, I know Corsi thinks he knows who's doing it. Do you guys have any idea? Because Corsi hasn't said so far.
I haven't been researching that. I know that the sheriff's office in Phoenix has a person of interest as to who's been forging these documents. But it's been a pattern of forgery, a pattern of intimidation that I see by Obama, intimidating the Supreme Court, trying to engage in all kinds of anti-democratic behavior that's typical of the Marxist worldview to impose a type of Stalinist Marxist agenda upon the middle class.
You mean a North Korean heaven?
North Korea, East Germany, this is what...
Because, wait a minute. I'm going to challenge you. Obama said if you have a business, you didn't build it. You didn't make your film, Joel, and I'm not doing this radio show. The government's doing this show right now. Of course, we shouldn't joke. They've got EAS taking over radio more and more. Thank God for government. Joel Gilbert is our guest. Joel, the way Mitt Romney's acting, when Obama calls him a criminal, Romney doesn't respond with, hey, you ran fast and furious. Romney is just floundering around. People say, well, he's the lesser of two evils. More and more, I think Romney may be a ringer. If not consciously, his handlers are. Now Rupert Murdoch is endorsing gun control. So is Bill Kristol. So now if I'm not for turning my guns in, I'm a liberal now. In the new world, you're a liberal if you're not for communism. You're a good conservative if you're for turning your guns in.
Well, it's amazing how you talk about Rupert Murdoch. I had my run-in with Newsmax.com. So some of these news outlets that we think are conservative and we look to them to shed some light on things are kind of capitulating to the Obama-David Axelrod agenda out of some kind of fear. Newsmax pulled my ad campaign. I had paid for a banner ad campaign when my film first came out. They pulled it right 5 minutes before it ran, and I said, why did you pull the ad? They said, well, we're trying to move to the center. So the amount of fear out there is just incredible, and the capitulation to the agenda that Obama and Axelrod are setting is just mind-boggling. I visited Russia 25 years ago when I was a student. I visited families of the refuseniks that were trying to leave Russia for 1 week. It was an amazing experience. You would see how there was no food in the stores. I would ask people, how come there's no food? How come there's nothing to buy in the stores? And they would say, well, in communism, you have to be at work 8 hours a day, but you don't have to actually work. You just have to be at work. So I saw the economic disaster, the physical disaster.
The heavenly. Come on, are you a conspiracy theorist? Are you about to tell me that North Korea isn't the heaven of earth?
This was no socialist utopia. This was hell on earth, was Marxism and communism, and I experienced it, and everybody was afraid to talk. I would ask questions. They'd say, well, we have to go over here. We can't talk in public. I am just very disturbed that...
Well, you got to have a permit to talk in public. Come on.
Well, this is what's happening here. The media is afraid to talk. I'm just shocked at the parallel to what I saw in communist Russia in the 80s when I was there for a week.
Well, you're just a bad person. You don't recognize freedom when you see it. Let's talk to Jesse in New Orleans. You're on the air with an extremist who doesn't like Stalin. Welcome, Jesse.
How's it going, Alex?
Good.
I've called you a lot in the past, and it always seems to be about something that's big going on, and it just so happens Obama is going to be coming down here to New Orleans tomorrow or tonight, and his entourage is staying at our hotels. He's going to be at the Lowe's, and I'm trying to get together a group of people to go down there and bullhorn him about the UN weapons ban treaty. And,
well, you know, if somebody makes a bet at that hotel, they didn't do it. Or if somebody fries an egg for the president, they didn't fry it. Government did it. You're going to be near the fount of creation today. Are you preparing to bow?
Oh, I've got my knee pads ready for the groveling.
Well, you're talking to the guy that makes it all happen there. I tell you, the grass is going to grow faster when he's in town. So what time are you planning on talking badly with a bullhorn to our gracious leader?
I was hoping to get together probably around 6 o'clock. I'm not really sure right now because I just got all the information together about where he was going to be. But I'm trying to get all my friends together, and I just posted it on Planet Infowars to try and get some more people to join us.
Good. What's the name of your group at planetinfowars.com?
Infowars NOLA.
Infowars NOLA?
O-L-A.
All right, fantastic. By the way, coming up in the next segment, it's up at Infowars.com. Shooter James Holmes didn't build his supposed theater attack. Obama did. And in this case, it's actually true. He built it with unemployment checks and welfare, $20,000 of body armor and all the rest of it. Of course, the guy can't talk. His mother says she didn't say what she said, but let's just believe the official story of the former intelligence chief of Mayor Bloomberg, who's sworn to get our guns, who's the police chief out there, who in his first press conference says, don't question their official story. Well, there you have it. It's official. Joel Gilbert, let's continue with some more calls. Colin in Texas, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hey, Alex, no problem. I just wanted a quick comment before I ask my question for Mr. Gilbert. You should put a picture of Obama looking at that Ronald McDonald killer saying you didn't do that, government did that. That would be funny. But my question for Joe Gilbert over here, I'm an info warrior down here in Texas. I always try to talk to everyone I know about real issues and real things, and most of them are sheeple, and, you know, they don't want to listen to anything, especially about the birther stuff. So if I could get one fact that is shocking and maybe easily verifiable by Googling it from you that all the info warriors out there could use, that'd be great.
Okay, I'd like to tell you that there's one quick factoid that would help the cause, but you have to remember that Obama spent 4, 5, 6 years creating this false identity as the son of a Kenyan goat herder, and he would then bring people together because he multicultural ideal. So you've got to have them buy and watch the film because it puts it all together in a cohesive way where they can understand that Obama's real father was this Communist Party USA propagandist and Soviet agent, Frank Marshall Davis. He's the man who also raised him, his ideological father, and everything falls into place once you see how it works.
Thank you. Let's jump to the next caller. Joe in North Carolina, you're on the air with an evil person engaged in the First Amendment.
Could be, man. Could be. Who knows? Hey, Alex, quick question for you. How many mass shootings has occurred since 2008, since he actually took office, till now? Does anybody know? Has there been quite a few? Or?
There's been less than 10 big ones, but about 6 or 7 big ones if memory serves, and a lot of gangland stuff that's real. But there's been some real Prozac heads that, you know, go and shoot 5, 6, 7 people. Why do you ask that question?
Or is it that kind of out of the ordinary for, you know, in a particular term for a guy who's knowingly against the Second Amendment?
What, are you next going to say he shipped guns to Mexico to blame the Second Amendment? Now you're really a conspiracy theorist. Even though that's admitted, it still doesn't exist.
Yeah, true. I was just wondering if we had the numbers on that. And
we need to look that up. Do you have a quick question for Joel Gilbert?
Joel, you're doing a good job. I haven't seen your movie, but I'll be sure to go in and take a look at it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, folks, look, it takes money to run this operation, a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money for me. Certainly not George Soros, who gets banker bailout money and then funds MSNBC and all these other attack groups. But it takes $4.5 million a year to run Infowars. I've got close to 45 employees, crew members, contractors now. We're really trying to launch and reach even more people with this platform. So it takes a lot of DVDs to get there. Well, it isn't just DVDs. It's advertisement. It's a bunch of things. It's memberships of prisonplanet.tv. We are pumping a lot of money into this operation. So buy the film. You support us. You support Joel Gilbert. Buy all the products. It's all stuff I believe in. You know, the Pro Pure water filters, InfoWarsShop.com. Joel Gilbert, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
All right, there he goes. We're going to come back and get another amazing guest on to look at forms of government persecution. And then we're going to continue with news looking at all of this. But if anybody thinks Mitt Romney's going to save them, they're crazy. Just like I told you, Obama isn't going to save you with Bush. Okay? They're bought and paid for. Now, we had Joel Gilbert on earlier, filmmaker, and every time, and I'm trying to basically inform him from my perspective, every time we bring up the fact that rich ultra elites are actually funding communism and socialism not to empower people but to get control of them, and that it's really a form of crony monopoly capitalism. I mean, Carol Quigley wrote books about it. All the globalists have talked about it, and when I bring it up, people just don't get it. And Aaron brought in this article about Thomas G. Ayers, you know, the father of Bill Ayers, and it says, CEO chairman of Commonwealth Edison, board of directors, G.D. Searle, super evil company, Zenith Corporation, General Dynamics Corp., First National Bank of Chicago. It just goes on, and it's the same with all these people. And look at how you had Romney and Bush, and we're going to our guest, coming out of the very same companies. And you've got Bain Capital funding Obama, and you've got, at the same time, back in 2004, you've got the same people who are members of Skull and Bones, this Illuminati death cult on record. You've got Kerry and George W. Bush, who are cousins. And now if you look at Romney and Obama when it comes to actions and who owns them, it's the same people. It's Obamney 2012 or Robomney. And it's just so frustrating to realize so much of the public is living in fantasy land. Now, I really wanted to get him on because I heard him on the radio a few years ago, or heard a YouTube video of audio where he was on a radio show, to be technical. Larry Pinkney is a veteran of the Black Panther Party, the former Minister of the Interior of the Republic of New Africa, a former political prisoner in and the only American to have successfully self-authored his civil political rights case, the United Nations under the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. And it goes on, in connection with his political organizing activities in opposition to voter suppression, Pinkney was interviewed in '88 on the national television PBS NewsHour, formerly known as the McNeil Lehrer NewsHour. He's been all over TV, radio, you name it. He is an editorial board member of blackcommentator.com, and you can find out more by reading his book, Saying No to Power, Autobiography of a 20th Century Activist and Thinker, William Mandel. But the point here is that I wanted to get him on to talk about COINTELPRO, because this stuff still goes on, but now the Department of Defense is involved. They've got fake bloggers. They call them robots, not just real people, but robots that go out and attack people. And they attack the left, the right, libertarians, conservatives, Christians, Buddhists, Muslims. They always beta test on a group that's unpopular, like Muslims. But really, the whole thing, if you look at it, is while they've got all the good old boys with the John Deere hats hating the Muslims and ready to give up their rights, actually, you get the government documents, it's all demonizing the good old boys. There's a global corporate takeover of this country. They brag they've done it. And it's very, very dangerous. And we need to understand the types of tactics, because when I've heard Mr. Pinkney on the radio talk about some of the stuff he went through or the things he witnessed, I've had similar things done to me. Some, just the classic stuff. Lies put out, my wife called, women calling up saying they're pregnant, or that I gave them a disease, just standard stuff that came out of COINTELPRO. And this was documented. State of Texas had a big COINTELPRO operation that got shut down in, 1980? But it's also death threats, people breaking in your house, people, trying to intimidate you, trying to get you fired. A lot of this goes on, and it's totally illegal. Kind of like the NSA spying on us is illegal. And Larry Pinkney joins us. Larry, thanks for coming on the show today.
Alex, it's a distinct pleasure and an honor to be with you today on the show. Thank you.
Well, you've heard my little rant there. Tell us about yourself, your awakening, and the process of what you witnessed.
Well, the bottom line is this. I want to jump right in. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about me. You've said it all, really. I'm a veteran of the Black Panther Party, former regional minister of Interior for the Republic of New Africa. I write for, I'm an editorial board member with Black Commentator, blackcommentator.com, and associate editor with intrepidreport.com. But more important than any of that, I continue to fight for the human rights of all the people. And I began right here at home in the United States of America, or the so-called United States. I'm beginning to wonder how united we actually are. But anyway, let me say that the experiences that I have had personally as a political prisoner for 10 years, having been set up and framed viciously, and I'm not the only one, there are thousands. And by the way, let me make a point, my brother Alex, let me make a point. This covers people of all colors. I repeat, this covers people of all colors. We are all targets. The intent of COINTELPRO is to, and I quote, out directly from U.S. congressional records, I quote, to frame, to murder, to set up, to imprison political activists, anyone who dissents the policies of the United States government. Now, somehow, that strikes me as going contrary to the United States Constitution and to the Declaration of Independence. Somehow, that strikes me as being blatantly contrary. So I continue today, in the year of 2012, to struggle on behalf of all people, black, white, brown, red, yellow, all people, because we are all targets. And as you so correctly said, Alex, COINTELPRO goes on today. An example is the NDAA, the so-called National Defense Authorization Act, which Obama signed very quickly and quietly on December 31st, 2011, New Year's Eve, when nobody was paying attention, which act makes it, quote, legal to actually detain indefinitely whomever the government, and Obama is currently the chief of the government. He is commander-in-chief. But it makes it very clear that U.S. citizens in this country can be indefinitely detained without trial, without judge, without jury, without the right to legal defense. It is time for people to wake up, all people, and get out of la-la land. Get out of it, because we are in serious, serious trouble, Alex.
We are. For people that haven't gone through what you've gone through, and I've only gone through a little bit compared to what you've gone through, they don't understand. They don't want anybody getting organized, period, that the power structure doesn't control. And, you know, looking at how the Black Panther Party started from my own layman research, wasn't it trying to get communities organized, soup kitchens, getting people off drugs, getting people, together, and then they come in, infiltrate it, destroy it. Because, I found out very early on, if I just tried to help do community things, nothing got the system after me like that than if I tried to stop them bulldozing a veterans home or something. The system is so scared of the people ever standing up in decent and wholesome ways because they know other people that are going to join it. So their job was infiltrate it, wreck it, provocateur it, and then change the perception of how the people saw the Black Panther Party. Is that correct?
You are right on, as we would say in the party. My brother, you are right on. You see, the name of the game was then and continues now to be to discredit. And the name of the game in terms of discrediting is to simply present people such as yourself, okay, who are seriously attempting to awaken people, to raise their consciousness, to get them to understand what dangers we are in. You and people like you are considered very dangerous. Indeed, you and myself and thousands of others in this country are considered dangerous, not because we have broken any law, not because we have done anything untoward, anything wrong. But then again, I suppose it is wrong for people to become conscious, for people to understand that in fact, the name of the game is to control. And you used that word earlier. I was listening to you. You used the word control. And that's what it's about. Divide, manipulate, control. Keep people at each other's throats so that we don't understand that we have common interests. And that's the name of the game. Whether it's presented by this Predator drone missile NDAA signing president who shredded the U.S. Constitution, Barack Obama, or whether it's by any other representative of a system that, quite frankly, and I hope I'm not out of line saying this, but any other representative, so-called representative of the people, because we're not represented by them, Democrats or Republicans, who dares to tell the truth. Telling the truth these days is subversive, my friend.
Wow. Larry Pinkney is our guest. We're going to go to break here, sir. I want to come back and tell your story there in the early days of the Black Panther Party, what it was, what they did to it, and tell people what you and others went through. And as you said, the congressional hearings, folks, you can pull them up on COINTELPRO from the 70s. But the church committee, there were others. I'm going from memory. He can correct me. But, I mean, it was killing people, getting other people to kill them, setting them up. I mean, just you name it. And people stood up to it, so they backed off for a while. But now the last decade or so, I mean, it is full on. And, folks, it's so bad. I just tried to cover a military drill once. I've told this story probably 50 times. Mike Hansen saw it. We're out there trying to cover a drill at night in Florida. And a guy just jumps out of the bush and starts setting fires and then blaming it on us. Turned out he was with the Army. I mean, folks, let me tell you, that means they feel pretty darn invincible if they'll do stuff like that. All right, this is a short segment, long segment coming up. Larry Pinkney, veteran from right there at the start, Black Panther Party member. Of course, the new Black Panther Party today is something completely different from my view. A bunch of provocateurs. I mean, the stuff they're saying sounds like what you would say to discredit a group of people. But I understand getting angry and stuff. I mean, I'm sure I've done things before that aren't perfect. But when it's consistent, you can really see what's going on. Larry, you've got the floor of this little 6-minute segment. Describe your experiences. Tell us what the Black Panther Party was really founded for.
Black Panther Party, and thank you so much, Alex. The Black Panther Party was founded on what was a 10-point program. The 10-point program was essentially a very clear, distinct, and simple program that called for very specific things like clothing, medical care, jobs, schooling, i.e. education, etc. Very simple, very direct, and by the way, very threatening to the U.S. government. Isn't that amazing? The Black Panther Party, I personally was involved in a number of programs as a member of the party, including programs to serve the people with breakfast programs. And people sometimes have heard about the Black Panther Party's breakfast programs, where we fed throughout this nation, especially children, but anyone. Didn't have to be a child. And by the way, didn't have to be black either. We fed food, good food, to folks who were hungry. You know what?
This was before the school lunch program.
Oh, way before the school lunch program. Yes, definitely. In fact, a number of the school lunch programs actually came about as a result of what the party had, we call it the party, what the party had done.
Yeah, I'd read that.
That's true. That is very accurate. Also, we had what was called free clinic, free medical programs. There's a book out that it's actually quite recent, Alex. I have it right here. The book is called Body and Soul. Body and Soul, the Black Panther Party and the Fight Against Medical Discrimination. Now, it's by Alondra, A-L-O-N-D-R-A, Nelson. I would urge folks of all colors and both genders, read the book. Come to your own conclusion. It's well documented with original sources, okay? Now, as a Panther, as a member of the party, one of my first jobs, and I suppose that's because of how I speak, was I was sent to communicate with people of all colors, including, my brother, white folks, okay? Because I spoke, I suppose, in such a way that was considered to be very clear, very simple, and quote-unquote non-threatening. I spoke in a way and still speak in a way that is about the common interests of the people, the common interests. What do we have in common? Let's go for that. Let's struggle for that. As a result of my activities, and you can read about this, your listeners and viewers can read about it in a book entitled Saying No to Power, Saying No to Power by William M. Mandel, M-A-N-D-E-L, introduction by Howard Zinn, and just go to the book and you can read the details of some of the things that I did in the party. But as a result of what I did, I and many, many, many others were viciously set up. And when I say viciously, my brother, I pull no punches. I do mean viciously. There is no depth, D-E-P-T-H. There is no depth as to how low this government will go. And I say it in not only the past tense, but the present tense. Okay, and we need to be aware of that. Don't be paranoid, but be aware. Be conscious. Okay, as a reverend as a man that I knew who happened to be a reverend used to say to me, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean it's not happening. Okay, and let's be aware of what's going on so that we can effectively organize collectively, i.e. together, against it. I'm very proud of the fact that I served the people body and soul, as did so many thousands of others in the party. There are many political prisoners today, to this very day, the year 2012, that still languish in U.S. prison gulags throughout this nation.
Well, we're going to go to break. 18-minute segment coming up, the longest segment of the hour. Larry Pinkney's our guest. When we come back, you're going to have some time because everything I read about and have talked to folks that was happening then, they're now hyping it back up, taking out a deep freeze. It was always still going on, but it seems like it's accelerating. So I personally want to know what to look for, because I've been at the receiving end of some of this. Nothing compared to what you've received. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear people on this show who you could call extreme right-wing, left-wing, libertarian, anarchist, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Catholic, and people always try to pigeonhole us and say, oh, you know, he had this guy on or he had that guy on. And again, I'm not apologizing for anybody I have on the show. I have people on here who I respect for their courage, even if I don't agree with all their political views. And I have people on here who are experts in their areas, because I want to learn and I want to ask questions, and I know you want that information as well. That's why we'll have somebody on who is for a gold standard, like Ron Paul. Then we'll have somebody on who's for state banks, or somebody who's for federally controlled fiat currency with 0% interest, which if you're going to have a government model, that's the way to do it, boy. I mean, you're going to have racing economies if you do that. That's what we had in this country for over 100 years. There are a lot of different systems. And so it's not schizophrenic that I'm, or it's not contradictory that we jump around, because I'm trying to figure it all out. Now, on the subject of COINTELPRO, I live in one of the few states where the state got caught doing it in congressional stuff, and it got suspended, what, in 1979, 1980. And I've been on the receiving end of the State Police Intelligence Bureau. They never tried to set me up for anything criminal, but I don't like being surveilled by them. The feds, it's different. I mean, I just tried to cover the Army one time. Mike Hansen was there. They were doing this takeover drill in Brooksville, Florida. And, I mean, the neighbors were coming out of their houses going, you're Alex Jones. The Army came by and said, don't talk to you. And I'd never run into something like this. I was just covering, you know, these gun confiscation drills. And they tried to set us up. They broke in our hotel room. They had a guy jump out and start setting fires. I mean, I'm just by the municipal airport, standing there, and a guy jumps out and starts lighting fires, saying I'm doing it. And I had to go physically jump on him, and Mike's trying to put the fire out and everything. And then the military pulls up on dune buggies. And, I mean, it was just insane, ladies and gentlemen. And if they do that, I mean, again, I'm not bashing our military. I found most people in the military are actually more awake than the public. The average cop isn't a bad person. But I'm telling you, this system, take the stuff just happened in California 2 days ago. I haven't even shown that footage on the radio or /TV yet. Well, we showed it on the nightly news last night, some of it. But, I mean, it's so crazy. You watch them shooting babies in strollers with rubber bullets at 10 feet away. That can kill them. And shooting women with babies in their arms because they're protesting a cop shooting an unarmed man. Again, look, the system's gearing up for revolution because the system knows it's doing things that are going to cause it. I don't want blood in the streets. I've had enough violence in my life just growing up in Dallas, Texas. I don't mean to be ranting. I want to go back to our guest. It's that I really am concerned, folks. Every time I look at my children, I feel like crying now. But it's not a physical crying. It's a soreness in my heart. It's a pain that I want everybody to live good. I want everybody to get along. I want to quote Rodney King, literally, can't we all just, but there are special interests that don't want that, and they want us, just like Bob Marley said, fussing and fighting. They want us killing one another. And that's what this is about. And, you know, groups are all programmed against each other. So it's real when people don't like you because of what color or religion you are. It's real of those gay folks that got beat up in D.C. I mean, you know, that's wrong to do. It's real when somebody comes after you and attacks you. But then you cannot sit there and play into the plan of then hating everybody who looks different than you or comes from somewhere different, because now you're playing into the divide and conquer trap. Now, I'm ranting. I don't want to divert you, Larry Pinkney, now that I went off in that 3-minute rant. I want to give you the floor for this segment. You've got the floor. The next 14 minutes you're hosting. Describe to people what COINTELPRO is, the congressional hearings, and what you and others went through, the setups, so people know what we're facing.
All right. COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, spelled COINTELPRO, an acronym, COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was, and I say still is, very much so, even though it's been codified in the Patriot Act and the NDAA, was a program that was meant to neutralize. And by the way, the word neutralize comes directly not only out of my FBI file, but out of the files, many thousands of other files, COINTELPRO files. To neutralize thinking, conscious, everyday black, white, brown, red, and yellow people who wanted to bring about justice and fairness for everyone in the system. COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, the government program, the feds, now certain components or segments, if you will, of the police in various states throughout the union were also involved, but the coordinator was federal and continues to be federal, no matter what name they give it. And it's a program where, and some of the examples, Alex, that you gave are so, I mean, they're just right. It's sad. It's sad when you look at it. People say, oh, this is America. That can't happen. Excuse me, this is America, and it is happening. It has happened. And if we don't do something about it, folks, it's going to continue to happen. All they have to do is keep us divided, keep us mute, keep us ignorant, keep us, you know, on the dole, as it were. We have to take the grip in our own hands. This is what we have to do. And I don't give a damn about our color or our gender, but I do give a damn about our humanity, because we are human. So getting all of us, we are human. And I guess, Alex, like you, I tend to get on a little rant every now and then. Sorry about that.
No, break down what happened to you. This is important historical information.
But what happened to me was the FBI had attempted to set me up in many, many ways. So they decided that they would, and you can read this in the book that I've already mentioned, Saying No to Power, and we obtained this information under the Freedom of Information Act. Okay, the FBI said, well, Pinkney is dangerous because of his ability, and I quote, to unify black and white. That's why it was dangerous, so the FBI said. And he must be, quote, neutralized, in quotation marks, neutralized. They said, we don't know what his habits are, but we're going to utilize, quote, sex and drugs. We don't know what his habits are. It doesn't matter. We're going to neutralize him. Can you imagine the horrible, the pain, the outrageous actions that this government indulges in, to this very day, engages in to stop people? And that includes, by the way, Alex, people like you. You know, and I want to say this at this point. Alex, you and people like you and your show, you all, you and like the Power Hour with Joyce Riley, like the Jack Blood show with Jack Blood, you all and many others, really, are the Paul Reveres and the Crispus Attucks of the 21st century. And that's what we need. We need more Paul Reveres, more Crispus Attucks to wake the sleeping flock up so that we can change this situation. Back to COINTELPRO. The bottom line is that there is nothing, and I repeat, folks, nothing that this government will not do to, quote, neutralize you. However, we have something that this government will never have. We have, as we used to say in the party, the power of the people. And that's why this government engages in everything that it can to divide and conquer, rule and conquer, keep people in fear of each other, keep people suspicious of each other. You know, and I'm not saying, Alex, I'm not saying that when I say collective struggle, I'm not saying we're going to be in 100% agreement. Anybody who's in 100% agreement with me or anyone else is a damn liar. We don't want liars. It's okay to disagree. But when we disagree, as Brother Malcolm X used to say, let's do it in the closet and come out as a united front. The people, black, white, brown, red, and yellow.
By the way, I mean, I noticed that Malcolm X got all this attention. Everything was okay with the system as long as he was, you know, blacks, you know, over here. But as soon as he said everybody needs to get together, that's when they killed him.
You got it. Alex, you just hit it right on the head, my brother. That's the bottom line. As soon as Malcolm evolved, the instant Malcolm evolved and realized that this was a people struggle of all colors and both genders, Malcolm became dangerous. Suddenly, Malcolm had to be neutralized. 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 You can be killed, you can be imprisoned and killed, but you are stopped. And that you hit it right on the head. What more can I say to that, Alex? What more can I say? You said it.
Okay, let's go over what they did to you and others, specifically how COINTELPRO works.
Okay. COINTELPRO works in a way, it's very insidious. Your friends, or who you think are your friends, even whether they might be relatives, they might just be close personal friends. They use people as agents and agent provocateurs to set you up. Let's say you make a statement. Let's say you disagree with Barack Obama, as an example. You disagree with his policy, his NDAA policy. You disagree with his kill list. Well, the actions of COINTELPRO would turn that around and turn it against you. Next thing you know, you've got people saying, he said that he wants to dispense with Obama because of blah, blah, blah. Kill list or NDAA.
That's what they always do when Nightline is here or anybody. They say, you're wanting violence. I'm like, when did I talk about violence? They go, you're going to cause it. You're going to cause it. You're going to, and I'm like, wait, I'm against drones killing innocent people and secret arrests and checkpoints. So I'm the one that's going to cause violence?
So who's violent? Who's violent? I would submit to you, my brother, that violence is poverty. I would not only physical poverty, but poverty of the mind. I would submit to you that violence is homelessness. I would submit to you that violence is joblessness, underemployment, foreclosure. Violence is on many levels.
It's violent to give $40 trillion to offshore banks.
That's right. That's right. That's violence. So let's get our priorities in order. Let's talk about, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, who the real purveyors of violence are. It's not we the people. It's those who try to control and corral us, we the people.
I agree, but get into all the stuff they did with killing. I mean, they got people to kill other people. They set people up.
Yes.
Tell folks what they did.
In the party, specifically, speaking as a veteran of the Black Panther Party, what they would do is they would get agents. First of all, they just find somebody black, pay them a little money. Okay, you can have, we're going to pay you this. We're going to put you up in a fine pad, crib, house, whatever you want to call it. All right? All we want you to do for us is go in there, join that Black Panther Party, and this is your job. Your job is to cause as much dissension as you possibly can between the brothers and sisters in that party. Get them to kill each other. And then when they start killing each other, you come out, you step forward as a witness, but of course you never indicate that your role was to be an agent provocateur to bring about this killing, to bring about these horrible, horrible atrocities. This is just one example, but they did it to the party throughout the United States. In fact, I was just reading a COINTELPRO document, Alex, just a few days ago about what they did in Minnesota as an example. And this, I'm talking primarily about California and New York, but it happened all over the country. And in Minnesota, I read this FBI COINTELPRO document. You know what they did, my brother, was they sent paid provocateurs to attack people. Okay, this is late 60s, early 70s, to physically attack and injure and harm people, but don't kill them, just hurt them very badly, and then walk away and say, and you tell everybody, I'm a Black Panther. Okay? Now,
so that's the modern thing. Get the guys out front of the place saying you can't vote, then you can put it on the news. It's a false flag. Right. Set up, have people do bad things in your name. Oldest trick in the book.
And the reason that it's the oldest trick in the book, and you're absolutely correct, my brother, the reason it's the oldest trick in the book is because it has consistently worked. And it has consistently worked because we've got too many sheeple, not people, too many sheeple out there who are stuck as potato, whatever you call them, sitting on the couch. What's the term, Alec? Couch potatoes.
Yes.
Okay, couch potatoes who don't understand that that couch is about to be pulled out from under their posterior, and that they are about to find themselves in a situation where they have no constitutional or human rights. So yes, I go back to what you said, because all I can do, and all I am doing, Alex, is I'm trying to put a little meat on the bones. But you've already got the bones. You've been putting the bones out there for years, my brother.
Well, do you see this starting to come to a head? Because, I mean, more and more, everything we saw them use in the 60s, 70s, and 80s is back, and it's across the board, demonizing anybody that doesn't like this globalist takeover.
It's worse now. And why is it worse? Because what they do, they went out and got this quote, colored guy, and people are talking hope and change, right? When it really wasn't hope and change. It was mental dope and a rope for everybody, okay? And what they did was they said, oh, yeah, they'll go for that. Yeah, they'll go for that. Yeah, sure. We'll get the blacks to go for them, because blacks will, oh, we finally got it, black president. Oh, he did. You know, the whites will go for him. Go, I'm sure I'm not racist. I'm going to vote for this guy. See, I'm not racist. Okay? Instead of people all standing up and saying, wait a damn minute here. Wait a minute. Who is this guy? What is he about? Who is he really? What are his policies? We don't care about your hope and change. We're not interested in rhetoric. We're interested in action. And as Wayne Madsen, I think you had him on earlier.
Yes.
I've used some of Wayne's work at blackcommentator.com and intrepidreport.com, where he talks about Obama's CIA background, as particularly that of his parents, but not just his parents, Obama himself, who worked for, by the way, BIC. Okay.
And the grandparents, and then you've got all the weird, exactly, I was bringing that up with the guy earlier who just gets into the communist stuff. More and more, I think that's just the cover. Really, yes. This is deep CIA.
Yes, we're talking deep cover here. It's a cover, all right, but it is deep cover. And it is time for people to do like they said in that movie, pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Pay attention to what is affecting all of us.
Wow, it's great to talk to somebody so conscious and awake. And again, it's just normal for those of us that are awake. But I look at the general public, they're in trances.
Yeah,
I want to talk about that when we get back, because I talk to adults, men who are like children, and they just have no idea what's going on. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's our final segment in this hour. We've definitely got to get him back up in the near future. By the way, the crazy Ronald McDonald killer, who his mother said she didn't say he did it, the guy they're claiming did it, who can't talk and is obviously so drugged up. I mean, who knows what really happened? Now it turns out he got a $26,000 grant from the Institutes of Health and was involved with the Pentagon and stuff. That's CBS News. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Operation Northwood saying they would shoot people in the U.S. and then blame it on foreign enemies, and even how to frame patsies. We're talking to Larry Pinkney of the original Black Panther Party about COINTELPRO that came out in congressional testimony, and his work and others helped get it cut back for a few decades, but it's back. Knowing what I know and about officials, different official stories and how it works and the way they put things out, I mean, I can't put anything past the system running false flags or staged events. And this whole shooting out in Colorado, I think, stinks to high heaven.
Come on, Alex. Look, first of all, let's look at the hypocrisy of it. All right, the horrible tragedy in Aurora, Colorado. And it was a horrible tragedy, okay? But who did this nation find itself turning to for condolences and comfort? Why, none other than the kill list Predator drone missile NDAA signing Barack Obama. Excuse me, but something is rotten in Denmark, and it stinks to high heaven. And, I mean, come on, all we have to do is just use our, oh my God, just use our common sense.
Well, that's the exact point I made, is that they'll kill over 200 people at a wedding to get one person they claim is a terrorist, violating the Geneva Convention and international and our own law, and then say, oh, that's just collateral damage. We killed a whole bunch of kids and women, and we blew a bunch of them got their arms and legs blown off and are wounded for life. Big deal. But then, oh, half-mast and all this. I mean, it's so obvious what they're doing.
Yes. Not only obvious, my friend, my brother, but it is despicable. It is time for the people of this nation of all colors to wake the hell up. It is time for us to understand that we're being pimped. The pain of the people, of everyday, ordinary people, is being pimped to high heaven. And only we, the people, can change that. And we got to put aside our differences. Of course, we're going to have differences. We need to put them aside, okay, in favor of our common interest. We deal with those differences, but right now, we better damn well deal with our survival.
Well said. We're going to have you back up soon, as we're basically out of time here, to talk about some of the other things that happened. And we can get out the congressional admissions of all the horrible things COINTELPRO did. But I remember interviewing Ted Gunderson, and he apologized for it, but he admitted they would just call up Black Panther Party members' wives and have women call up and say that they were cheating on them and stuff. Just, stuff like that. But that's nothing compared to planting drugs on people. I know that went on, too.
Yes, all the time. And Alex, the fact of the matter is, it's very painful for me. I try to get this information across. I don't want people to be in fear. I want people to get mad. As Malcolm said, sad people don't do nothing. The angry people, they do something.
Oh, I agree with you. People always think I'm putting this out to scare them. No, I want people to hear the truth and shame those that are doing wrong, so we stand up and say no. Is there a website we can visit, Mr. Pinkney?
Yes, sir. BlackActivistWritersGuild.org. www.blackactivistwritersguild. Please come and visit.
All right.
My brother, thank you, Alex.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Rupert Murdoch and resigning from his papers in England, his control of those. He is being blackmailed by the organized crime syndicate. I mean, you're seeing him endorse gun control now. You're seeing all these neocons. In fact, I had my stack in here from a newscast I shot last night. And I have the stack that was left in here, not the big stack from the radio yesterday that was already out of here, but the other big stack. It was a bunch of neocons on Fox News are saying, no, we should restrict guns. We should ban semi-auto. We should, it was a bunch of shows. Aaron printed me a whole stack of suddenly they're on Fox News going, ban semi-auto, ban them. You shouldn't be able to own them. It's only for hunting. You should only be able to have bolt action. Now, there is the stack. I'm going to find this, folks. There's just so much. I mean, that's a whole article right there of just the fact that they clearly are blackmailing News Corp. And I've been saying this for about a year. I mean, they're arresting the heads of News Corp in England. I mean, a lot of them are still in jail. There's more arrests today. Look, I'm not saying News Corp is good, but they're not MSNBC, who openly meets with George Soros and Media Matters, and their memos have gone public, and Politico's defended them, saying we're going to infiltrate news organizations and destroy them and sabotage them from within. I mean, that's racketeering. And they're tax exempt. Can you imagine if I tried to be tax exempt and just stand up for liberty when we really are nonpartisan and just stand up for what's right? But I've got to tell you, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of what Rush Limbaugh does. They've been trying to destroy him this year. They're trying to destroy News Corp right now. News Corp has just rolled over, belly up to this. Because the system sees it as a threat, because it at least posed as patriot to get that giant audience, because that is the most popular idea out there, is basic liberty. And so Fox News tries to pose as anti-New World Order enough to get that audience. I mean, look at Infowars.com. We've come from nowhere in the last 17 years, just it looks like nowhere, but incrementally building up to the point now where we're as the biggest thing in alternative media, period, bar none. And that's not bragging, by the way. That freaks me out quite a lot, because it's an incredible responsibility. And White House groups like Think Progress, run by the White House publicly, are calling for us to be shut down. They're calling for Drudge to be destroyed, basically. And it's very creepy. So pray for us, folks. This is not a joke. This is not a game. My spidey sense has been really tingling. They're getting ready to launch new wars, obviously, not just proxy wars against Syria and Libya, but Iran. All Hades is getting ready to break loose. They're telling police nationwide, get ready for total disaster and martial law in October. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is going on. Israel's saying they're going to attack Iran because Iran's planning to attack the Olympics. Does anyone really buy that? And again, I'm not for Iran either. It's just that Israel's lying, ladies and gentlemen. Israel's been caught staging terror attacks before. Jerusalem Post, Haaretz, Ynet News. It's not. They're doing it. And all these governments do it. They want wars so they can stay in office and get no-bid contracts and take people's rights during a giant war. Because let me tell you, they start a war with Iran and the Russians get involved, everybody's going to line up and do what they're told. And they got the checkpoints ready, the Marines, the Army, all of it. All right, I'm going to shut up right there. I want to take calls for the rest of this segment and the next. If you're in Littleton or Aurora, Colorado, and they did was call up and say, is your son James Holmes? And she said, yeah, that's him. They said, you know, guy with red hair, James Holmes, lives here at this. Yeah, you got your man. That's him. Why? What's going on? She said she didn't know that he'd been accused of these shootings. But see, they sold it like, Mommy said so. Well, let me tell you, ma'am, we've got, as people have noticed, when we open the phones up, we can load the phones from just in Aurora. And so I want to give people a chance from Aurora when we come back in this next couple segments ahead of 3 big guests today and a ton of news we're going to be peppering throughout. I want to go to people in Aurora or Littleton in that area. See how this whole thing's mischaracterized? Just like when Breitbart died within an hour and 49 minutes. I timed it. You know, from the times the articles were time-stamped. They said he died of natural causes, go to sleep, no big deal. Coroner says he died of natural causes. The coroner hadn't even been called into the next day. See, I mean, again, the evidence of it being a black op is the fact that everything's so scripted day one. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live and transmitting worldwide. We have a jam-packed transmission lined up for you today. Wayne Madsen, I don't know his take, his intel on the mass shooting yet. But he formerly worked with the NSA. He's been a Capitol Hill reporter for decades, or about 15 years since he got out of the NSA. He's broken so much news here and talked to his sources, federal informants and others, breaking down the fact that Judge Roll and Congresswoman Giffords were shot to basically cover up an investigation they were involved in of Fast and Furious. Wayne Madsen will be joining us in about T-minus 25 minutes. Joel Gilbert, we're going to open the phones up for him. This will be his second radio visit with us. He's been on the Nightly News. The maker of Dreams of My Real Father. Today is the official release date of that film. You notice we've been promoting it the last month. We have it in stock at InfoWarsShop.com. But the point is he is going to be joining us coming up. And then Larry Pinkney, video Skype. I have heard him on the radio before. He is a veteran of the real Black Panther Party, not the federally created ones. The former Minister of Interior of the Republic of New Africa, a former political prisoner, and the only American to have successfully self-authored his civil political rights case to the United States, United Nations under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. He's going to talk about COINTELPRO and how they basically destroyed the real Black Panther Party, regardless of whether you support their political views or not. They were not violent at first. They were infiltrated and radicalized by the government and the. I mean, I've had former FBI agents, high-level ones, the head of the Southern District of California, one of the most important FBI positions in the country, Ted Gunderson, admitted himself to COINTELPROing people. But he'd do stuff like, have women call up their wives and act like they were, calling up and that dating was going on. Kind of stuff that's happened to my wife many times. And he said that's tame compared to what goes on nowadays. Rest his soul. Of course, he died. Was it earlier in the year or was it late last year? So that's coming up. Wayne Madsen, Director Joel Gilbert from the film Dreams of My Real Father, and Larry Pinkney. I'm very excited about those 3 interviews today. And we'll have open phones, I promise, during Joel Gilbert and for the second half of Larry Pinkney today. Obviously got a lot of video clips, a lot of audio clips, big events with it is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, the 24th day of July 2012. There is massive, obvious military news around the world, economic news. They're moving towards QE3. The Federal Reserve is, all of this is huge, very important information we're going to be breaking down. Also, new phone hacking charges rock London. Suddenly, Rupert Murdoch is endorsing gun control, George Soros, basically everything that he's always loved, but now he's fully turning over to them as the fact that the criminal attorney general and the Fast and Furious crime syndicate can arrest the head of News Corp basically whenever they want. So understand there is major blackmail going on there, and it looks like News Corp is completely rolled over into Obamanoid worship session as the blackmail game accelerates. We're going to be breaking all of this down. Syria confirms chemical weapons reserved for attack from abroad, which is exactly what our so-called government has for attacks from abroad. Israel steps up its rhetoric. That's just some of the news up at drudgereport.com. At Infowars.com, we have a lot of the same news, but also a lot of in-depth analysis of globalist crime syndicate operations. Yesterday, the Associated Press had an article about Marines shifting to police work because it's about being an occupying army, not just going in and knocking a government out, but putting in the new globalist military. I mean, it's always been about that since the days of Smedley Butler. But there is an article that details this out by Steve Watson at Infowars.com, and it gets into concerns about Marines. And it's a good article. It's just that Marines have already had DWI checkpoints all over the country, totally illegal. They've responded to shootings all over the country. The Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Army have all said they're going to put troops in every U.S. city. They're just announcing this to sell you on the idea that it's for overseas because it is dual use. But why are they getting ready for martial law? Well, they say it's for collapse, but I thought we were out of the recession 3.5 years ago. I mean, they don't lie to us. These are good people running our country. So we're going to be going over all that. And the public is really noticing that Mr. Holmes, the supposed shooter, I mean, all over the news, they just say it's him, he did it. He can't talk, though. He's obviously drugged out of his mind on psychotropics and other antipsychotics, but no one's saying he's drugged. It's just, here's a guy that can't talk, and he did it. And by the way, his mother and father have come out. This is an ABC News. Alleged Colorado gunman's family stands by son, and she says, I didn't say you've got your man in the shooting, as the police put out. They haven't been talking to us. They haven't been asking for our help talking to him. All that you want to call, or if you know the mother of the Ronald McDonald shooter, who's obviously drugged out of his mind, who they've already convicted, we need to get a hold of the mother because she's coming out saying, the cops called me up and said, does your son have red hair? And is he this person? Is this his name? She goes, yeah, you've got your man. That's my son. And then they went with that and said that she said that he did it. She said, no, they hung the phone up. Folks, this is all a setup. Hey, is this your son? You got red hair? Yeah, that's him. That's him. Yeah, you got the right guy. Thank you. Click. She's calling him for days. Hey, I didn't say that. Hey, I want to meet with him. Hey, Hey, he looks like he's drugged up. Hey, what's going on here? We're going to stand by him. Something's going on here. That tells you right there if it's a black op, the parents aren't involved. In these other cases where they're involved in high-level government operations, beyond national security, above top secret, shadow government, COG, Harrison Kleinbold's parents. And again, he comes out of an advanced brain interface. This program, and you could pull this up, Department of Defense wants to wipe bad memories. In fact, we've done the research. Aaron covered it some last night. We've got to do whole articles on this. This is just too much. This is exactly, I said I'd go to your calls, and I'm not right now. 800-259-9231, 1-800-259-9231, 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us. This whole thing, and then all the witnesses saying multiple shooters, smoke bombs from different angles, people letting him in, and now they've got the classic videos that look like actors. They're like, I have my ticket. I was there. It was terrible. By the way, there's only one shooter. Be sure to know that. One shooter, I mean, oh, yes, Building 7 fell on its own from the fires, of course. And so the other towers, pancaking, and then it cuts to the same guys in ball caps, all perfectly saying it within minutes of it happening. I mean, this is all staged, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the passport being found and another one being found, all magical. I mean, it just goes on and on. These are staged events to shut up the police state to then be pointed at the American people. So I want to hear from you if you're in the Denver area or if you have family that were witnesses to something. A nice lady sent us some photos and stuff that Kurt's going to get up in the next 30 minutes or so at Infowars.com that she went and took at the movie theater. If she can get back through and tell us what happened when she went to take photos. But when they come out instantly with a story, right, Bart, not even 2 hours had passed since he was taken to the hospital, and they come out and say, died of natural causes, nothing to worry about. The coroner says, go back to sleep. The coroner comes out a few days later and says, I didn't say that. We're going to do a full check. And they've got poisons that metabolize out of the body. Again, that on top of about 100 other things, we have to look at Breitbart as a possible murder. I mean, that's crazy. He says, I'm coming out in the morning with something that will destroy Obama, and then alludes to Obama at communist meetings. And then, as I predicted, I said in a few weeks, because there's threats going on, they're going to release, if they release some milquetoast nothing, oh, look, here's one of his professors at a meeting calling for socialism or whatever. Wow, that's really bombshell. And here is a deer in the woods. Here is a bear doing what they do in the woods. I mean, here is a bird flying in the air. I mean, this was nothing. So he's going to bring out this bombshell. He goes to a restaurant, hangs out with a bunch of people, drops dead, and then we're told nothing to worry about, go back to sleep, and we're told immediately, don't ask questions or you're crazy. Oh, no, we just have known liars running things who've been caught assassinating people, who say they've got hit teams, saying the president will order secretly murdered whoever they want. They're admitting they spy on everybody without warrants now. I personally get death threats over the years where they want you to know, by the way, I just saw you let your dog out in the back. I'm going to cut your head off. Yeah, that little dog with the blue collar. I am going to cut your head off. Do you understand me? Oh, you got family in the hospital. Hope that, this is the type of stuff, folks. So they're listening to the phones. They've got armies of hardcore criminals that have been put in positions that are mercenaries who like hurting people, who like taking over. It's called tyranny. Tyranny. And we've been sold it's sexy, it's cool, it's fun. Yeah, if you want your wages cut, your bank accounts drained, taxes and fines and fees put on everything, and society collapsing with forced inoculations and chemtrails, then you're going to love the New World Order. Call's coming up. By the way, I went with the crew last night and saw a late-night showing of Batman. I haven't had a chance to talk to the crew yet because I walked out of the movie towards the end. It was so bad. And we were there getting popcorn and stuff, and they're like, what are you going to see, Batman? Like, oh, man, awesome, incredible. Oh, you just wait. And, I mean, we are, I mean, I can go watch fantasy. I can go watch, I'm already reviewing it, aren't I? I said to go to your calls. I can enjoy Green Lantern, the Spider-Man movies, Star Wars. I mean, I can go watch fantasy stuff. It's not that I'm like, oh, this is kid stuff. It's when there's no plot developed. It's all just weird scenes of posing. The Batman fights look like it was the scene with Captain Kirk fighting the Lizard, where, I mean, it's like slow motion. It was horrible. It was a horrible movie, nothing but a mindless vehicle to deliver the idea of martial law and checkpoints, and the police are a gang that are going to riot and defeat the Occupy Wall Street people, who were AKA the Second French Revolution, and the idea that any protest is terrorism. I mean, it was just so ridiculous. And the cops are rushing up on Bane, and they're firing hundreds of machine guns at him, and like one cop gets shot, and the bullets all hit the ground and spark. It's just total. There you go. Ha ha. They are, if you're not watching this, I guess radio listeners. That's enough. Actually, that's a better fight scene than the movie. I mean, it was horrible. All right, I'm going to shut up. I said we're taking calls from Denver. Julian, Joe, Mike, we'll get to all of you here. We'll even take some of you while Wayne Madsen's on. He's coming on to give us his take on it. By the way, I keep getting questions about a couple shirts my wife got me that are recreations of mountain climbing dress shirts from the 60s. And so that's what these shirts are I'm wearing. They're not Boy Scout shirts, but I like them, and that's what I'm wearing in the summer. And I have 2 shirts with them, and that's what I'm side issue, but it's become quite a big debate whenever I wear one of these shirts. What are they? Is it a military shirt? No, it's not. It's a rock climbing shirt. Not that I'm really a rock climber, but I do like to hike. So what do they call it, an alpiner? Okay, let's go ahead and take a call. Shut up, Jones, and go to the calls. Joe in Colorado, what's your take on all this? Them saying, Mommy says he did it, basically, but she never said that. What do you think of all this?
Yeah, first my heart goes out to the family.
Yes.
But I just think that, you know, it's blatant. The dude's not talking, you know, looking crazy in court, you know, bulletproof vest, all this stuff, doesn't shoot back at the